chaos reign. Chaos Reign presents Why You Should Leave Religion. How God is Not Real. With special guest Dr. Blaque. Broadcast October the 17th, 2021. Enjoy.
The views expressed on Talk Real Solutions, hosted by Tyrone Thompson at TalkRealSolutions.com, are the views of Tyrone Thompson and do not reflect the views of TalkRealSolutions.com, YouTube, or etc. The content here belongs to Talk Real Solutions and its many contributors. Views and opinions expressed by all contributors belong to them and not TalkRealSolutions.com or Tyrone Thompson, the host, or etc. All data and information provided on the site is for informational purposes only. Talk Real Solutions makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, correctness, suitability, or validity of any information on this site and will not be liable for any errors, omissions, or delays in this information or any losses, injuries, or damages arising from its display or use. All information is provided on an as-is basis.
In a world where there's crime, corruption, violence, murder, rape, theft, and all forms of atrocities that plague the world in which we live in today, what you're witnessing, we are living in a state of chaos. And it'll take a more extreme or greater chaos to restore the order in which the world we live in today.
Good evening. Good evening again, people, and also black people. This is Chaos Reign here. And today's stream, we're going to tackle something that's been, I would say, to present, from the past, present, and potentially the future, been in existence for thousands and thousands of years. And this is something that me and my special guests are going to re-examine. And I hope those that are participating and listening will have many questions. And the reason why I say many questions is because this is something that, whether we want to believe it or not, this does affect us as people more than everybody else. And to be very honest, most majority of other cultures and race people don't really deal with morality for us as a people, especially as black people. But before I give the title for today's stream, I would like everybody to go to talkrosolutions.com. On talkrosolutions.com, you see the 3-point plan for black empowerment, black achievement. And under the 3-point plan, you see a list of black banks were located all over the United States. I believe there's still roughly close to 30 black-owned banks still existing. And all that information is on T.R.S.com website, including all the latest articles and news, etc. You'll find the information right on the website. So, like always, go to T.R.S.com and you'll find the information and list of black-owned banks there today. Also, there's a donation tab on the website as well. And one thing I always will say and express, and I'm probably going to constantly do this now, that it would be wise to start your own business. And it has to be a great or extraordinary business, but a business unless you could establish. If you can, do so. I noticed one young man created his own little small business. I'm not sure if he's still pushing the business that he created, but I all wish for the best for him. But mind you, he's only in his 20s, and he knows the future of his natural survival is to really be somewhat, not always sufficient, but even go as far as self-employed. So I advocate most people or any person that is tired of what they're doing or just constantly in the rat race to establish your own black business, if you can. So, like I said, you have the capability to create some aside what you're doing right now. Don't always depend on what we call career sustainability. I will say moving forward in the 21st century, while things are being so automated and using more of technology and machines, robotics, and other forms of artificial intelligence, the job market for most people, especially in the first world country or the West, is very much possibly doom and gloom. So, like I always say, find other ways to make your money. And you have the capability. The information is there. Just make use of it. So that's all I'm going to say from that side. Also, you could find or follow Talk Real Solutions on Facebook. Title Talk Real Solutions on Facebook. And on Facebook, you will, if you add to the like page on Facebook, you will get invited to the private chat room where everything goes down in the DM, if I like to say so myself. So go into and hit the like button on Facebook, and you'll find what goes on the DM on Talk Real Solutions. I guarantee you it's hilarious, especially that dude ABC. I tell you, that crazy Negro right there. He always saying about the jab and all this stupid shit and all this other stuff that goes on. So engage in the conversation. Join the Facebook page today, and always Talk Real Solutions on YouTube as well. Same name, same logo. That famous line, the line that never sleeps but roars. You can follow and subscribe to the channel as well on YouTube. And always subscribe to Chaos Reign channel. Trust me, I have a bunch of videos on there, some from the last few years to some that's recent that's up here on T.R.S. So my channel and all the information is there. I've now noticed for those that's not listening, there is, and they added now, for most people that don't have a lot of subscribers on YouTube, you have to meet a certain criteria. They now give you a community tab, a post tab on YouTube now. You don't have to hit or achieve 1,000 subscribers. They automatically now will give it to you now for a little less. What's the number you have to achieve to get this? I can't really tell you because I just noticed I got it on my page now. And anybody that has a certain number of subscribers, you'll now have a community tab on YouTube now. So you don't have to really constantly wait to get 1,000 subscribers to get that feature. They now implement that on most people's YouTube channel, depending on how many subscribers you have. So, like always, please, if you got one on your page on YouTube, if you have a YouTube channel or you eventually are thinking one, always make use of the community tab to help further push your own channel. Trust me, the community tab is very helpful. I'll tell you that much. It lets me be more interactive with what's going on. And last thing, I'm also on audio podcasts, Breaker, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, etc. So you'll see the Apple Podcast side on my channel as well. So, I'm all over, so you'll find me. And that's pretty much it. So now, let us go into the subject at hand. Let me look for my title. Tonight's subject, Chaos Reign presents Why You Should Leave Religion and How Good Is Not Real. And how good, how God is not real. Sorry. And tonight's special guest, the return of the one and only Paco Abrigo. Star 61, Paco, so I can see you. So now, as I open the line for Mr. Paco Abrigo again, I want everybody to welcome Paco again to T.R.S. So, welcome, Paco. Paco, you there?
Yo, I just want to go with my famous alias, Dr. Blaque, because that's how I was gonna.
Oh, yeah,
that's how people are gonna find me on YouTube. So I appreciate it, but I'm gonna go with Dr. Blaque if you don't mind, because that's my YouTube channel.
Yes. I forgot.
No, it's all love. It's all love. Dr. Blaque, y'all show me some love and go check out the YouTube channel on a different subject. What's going on, Chaos?
I'm good. And like always, yes, welcome back again, Dr. Blaque, as your formal alias as is, and rightfully so, the real Black. So what's you been up to, Dr. Blaque?
I came back from another trip, another paid work vacation overseas. I was in Europe, checking it out. I haven't been offered a job in Europe before, so I had to take that opportunity and go see some of Europe. I got to see Germany and Spain, and I met a bunch of cool cats and worked on some totally new, different equipment, and it was interesting. But now I'm back in the USA. I'm back in the podcast game. I'm back listening to all the great YouTubers and podcasters and trying to make what positive contributions I can.
Okay. Can you hear me good? I had to switch headphones.
Yeah, I can hear you again.
All right, I sound much better. Yeah, man, I noticed you're doing your thing, Dr. Blaque. And if you remember from the last discussion we were talking mostly on student loans, and we covered that extensively, which I will probably put during this broadcast for those that's not familiar. So I have like a catalog of the streams we have done up to this point, for those that's not familiar with you. And like always, we're not going to go into no formal introduction because, y'all be familiar as we go into the subject at hand. So, Dr. Blaque. Oh, and before I go, I noticed you subscribe back to the channel. Thank you again. I'm not sure if YouTube unsubscribed you because I know you subscribed. Am I right?
Oh, yeah. I definitely subscribed, and I went and I made sure I was subscribed again. So, in case something happened or whatever, I am a subscriber.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because YouTube now they're going to start, and you're going to experience this firsthand while you start to go more into this journey on the social media / YouTube side of things, that there's some things you're going to say is not going to be friendly to algorithm. So you know right now, brother. And they will punish you. Unfortunately, they will punish you. Trust me. There's some things I might have said that was not favored, and they punish you by many ways. And it shows how wicked their platform is in the long term. You get me? But we all know we're not here to make friends. We're here just to leave the information. Because if we have to sit there and be favored just to do what everybody else is doing, people are not going to grow and learn. And one thing I will say again, for those that are listening for the very first time, I'm here to raise your attention span. Because the average attention span for the human is less than 5 seconds. That is no good. You cannot absorb or assimilate or retain anything you see or hear under 5 seconds. So I, like always, as Chaos Rain, I'm here to raise your attention span so it exceeds the 5-second threshold. Because God knows your attention span will rise and exceed much greater to things that have no value in your life, that you cannot use at all. So I'm the man that will change it, whether you like it or not. And I make it a mission every night or every broadcast, every upload. So anyway, so now, religion. The question that has to be asked is, why every human being now in the 21st century should look into leaving what we call traditional religions, or i.e., the 2 or 3 heads of the beast we call religion? That's the first question, Dr. Blaque.
And that's a great question. And it's a question that is not asked often enough, and it's definitely not asked in that way. You know, most people assume that you should join a religion. We in hopefully what looks like coming close to the end of another pandemic. And a lot of people have been told, and a lot of people have considered getting into a religion as a solution to your problem. And very few people ask the question, why should we leave religion? And I have quite a few reasons why. And first, I'm going to start with a reason that I think is obvious, should be obvious. And the reason is it doesn't work. Plain and simple, no ifs, ands, or buts. It does not work. Believing in powers outside of humanity, what people like to call higher powers, and especially any version of a religion, doing that doesn't provide you with any solutions. Now, it may make you feel better, but human beings, being so special, being so unique, can feel a way about a thing that isn't to their benefit. For example, children feel great about eating tons of ice cream for dinner, at least until the effect of that ice cream makes them sick and they throw up everywhere. So human beings can feel good about something that is not to their benefit. And religion is one of the most coveted, organized, babysat, protected versions of those good feelings that really don't provide you with any benefit. Now, to an extent, you could say there are a few benefits, like you could feel good, and then you could say, well, feeling good is a benefit in of itself. But that's not the solutions we're really looking for, right? We're looking for practical life solutions. And more importantly, why would I say we're looking for practical life solutions? Because that's what religion offers you. Religion says there are real life human being problems that believing our philosophy and behaving in certain ways will solve. The solution to your real life problems is doing things in the way that our religion suggests. And so I am here to say that after thousands, if not tens of thousands of years of trying it, it's failed us. It doesn't work. It absolutely does not work. You should leave religion because you accept the reality, the tested evidence that it doesn't work. You tried it and it fails. No matter how many gods you pray to, no matter how many ways you pray, no matter how badly you want it, you're not going to get a different result by following the rules of a religion. And that's the number one reason why you shouldn't even bother. You tried it, not your friends, not your family, not someone in the past, but you as an individual have tried it and it's failed you. And the frustrating part to a person like myself is there's so many people out there who've tried it and it fails them. And instead of them accepting the results of their own personal test, their own life experiences, they let the people in the religion sell them this excuse that, hey, it's okay for it to fail. It won't fail next time. For example, think about it. A lot of people in the United States are Christians. They say, well, you know what? You'll find out in the afterlife. You'll find out when you get to heaven. How sad is that? How sad is it that Christianity and other religions, but popularly Christianity, has been narrowed down or drawn down to, we can't give you anything in real life, but you better hold on to what we say and you better buy the crap we're selling you, because there's a chance that there's an afterlife that we also can't prove, and in that afterlife you'll get your real reward. I mean, what kind of sense does that make? Isn't that what they're selling us, Chaos? Isn't that what they're telling us? They're telling us, okay, you won't get a cure for cancer now, but when you die, you can go to heaven and there won't be cancer there. Well, what about if there's no heaven? Well, who's ever been to heaven and reported back and told us what heaven looks like, or that heaven even exists? Why are we allowing ourselves to accept a deal that we know we don't have any access to our end of the bargain? A preacher comes to you and says, give me your real money, pay your tithe and offering with real actual money, follow the rules, pray the way I say, do what I say, because I'm somehow a connection to a higher power. Spend your real time in this real life, and then if you do all those things when you die, you won't get anything in this life, but you'll get a reward in the afterlife with no evidence of an afterlife. Mm-hmm. Why is that okay? Do we do anything else that way? Do we go to college that way? Do we go to high school, elementary school that way? Did our teachers say, listen, do all these assignments, be on time, everything? You won't get a good grade in class. You won't get a good grade for this semester or the next semester, but you'll get a good grade sometime when you're 50. Would any of us go to school if that's the way we operated? What about the bank? If we went to a bank and the bank says, all right, deposit your money, we'll give you a really, really, really great interest rate sometimes 50 years from now. But as much as you can in there, we'll spend it, come back to us in 50 years, and we'll give you a really good interest rate on the money you've already deposited. We don't do anything like that. There is nothing else in history that we operate that way. But in the thing that's supposed to be the most important thing, our life and possibly an afterlife, which I keep reiterating, no one's ever proven to exist. The most important thing, we can't get answers now. We have to die and hope that at some point, some magic being that no one's ever established is going to come and give us a reward. Why does that make any sense? Who does that make sense to? Because it makes no sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, it would make sense to those that are, and I'll be nice, ignorant, dumb, and asleep. But for those that use their brain or their common sense, they will start, like any human being, start asking questions. And I'm not sure if you were a young man like when we were back in the time. And I don't think I ever did this much because I didn't really give it much energy when I was going to church. But I'm not sure if you were a person that used to stand and question the pastor and ask him the real logic questions.
Oh, I was.
Because
let me tell you something you might find funny. I am the son of a pastor. My father has spent my lifetime, and if not the majority of his own lifetime, being a pastor / evangelist. So he didn't always have a church where he was, the primary person for that one specific location. Especially in my life, he spent traveling preaching. So I am what they affectionately term as a preacher's child, a preacher's kid. And so my father has this very unusual way of preaching where he's always asking questions and answering questions, and I thought that was so amazing. The problem was when I, being his son, started to duplicate what he did, ask questions. See, my father asked questions that were in the benefit, or his answers to the questions that he asked were in the benefit of his religion. It was propaganda. It was more of the same. He just asked questions in a different way, and this is this is something that you got to think about here. You got to really grasp. I hope all the listeners grasp it. why are there 3,000 versions of Christianity? The reason that there's 3,000+ versions of Christianity is because Christianity is a game. Christianity is some kind of joke. See, you started out with Christianity being a sect of Judaism. All the people in the Bible are Jews. Think about that. All the people in the Bible are Jews. Jesus, correct. all the so-called prophets, everybody's a Jew. But then the Jews didn't like Judaism, so they started having different leaders who made their own versions of Judaism, and they keep changing the rules. And eventually one of those rule changes led to a sect that started calling themselves Christians. And then another sect called themselves Christians. There was a few Christians. And this is 1st century BC, right? And then you go down to Constantine and the boys at the Council of Nicaea, and they put all the sects together and make one official version of Christianity. But then you come another 1,000 years later, you come to the United States. Well, you go to Europe, and the Catholic Church is abusing everybody. So the first official version of Christianity was Catholicism. The Catholic Church was abusing everybody. So you have Martin Luther come along, and right at the right time, when Martin Luther comes along, the Gutenberg press was invented, and Martin Luther could spread his version of Christianity. Now you have two versions of Christianity. You have Lutheranism and Catholicism. But Luther and Lutheranism was protest against Catholicism. So then you had some other people started to protest, and you had more versions. You had 3, 4, 5 versions of Christianity. You had Catholicism, Lutheranism, and a couple others. And all the others other than Catholicism were considered protesters or Protestants. And then they started killing each other, which is, what religious people do. They start killing each other. And through this whole process, one might wonder, what is God doing? But, okay, they're killing each other. The Catholics are killing all the Protestants. And so to escape that, the Protestants go to the New World. And they come over to USA, and they bring their slaves. And once again, who knows? God was just taking a break on vacation, not paying attention to all the horrible things happening. But just at the end of slavery, the slavery in the West, slavery in the West, just at the end of slavery in the West, the Protestants start to have, at this point, they have 500, 600 versions of Christianity. And some of these people call themselves abolitionists. And they say, listen, we shouldn't own other humans. What a novel idea. What the hell was God doing all this time that in the late 1700s, the Europeans decided that they shouldn't own other human beings? And then they started to give themselves credit for it. They said, hey, we're abolitionists. We're against our other Christians. We're all Christians for some reason, but we're against them, and we don't want to have slavery anymore. We're abolitionists. And that began to spread throughout the European cultures and throughout the new America. And, all right, finally we get to the abolition of slavery, no more slaves, and the slaves were taught this Christianity thing. And so the slaves started to make their versions of Christianity. So you had Baptists, and then you had Southern Baptists, and you had all kinds of different Christianities. And so to today, one of the newest versions of Christianity is, what are the guys' names? Scientologists. They are one of the newer versions of Christianity.
Was that 3-4 years ago, Scientology?
They came. No. Scientology's been out a whole 40, almost 50 years now, because it was the actor. He was a writer, actor, a science fiction writer. And he wrote, I can look up his name, but he wrote science fiction, and he convinced his people that, hey, I know God in a different way. But you know what? I take it back. Technically, Scientology isn't a version of Christianity. It uses some Christian foundational points, but L. Ron Hubbard is his name. L. Ron Hubbard, he decided that God existed in a planet far, far away. He was a science fiction writer, so he made it. God exists in a planet far away, and they got into a war, and they banished the losers into the volcanoes of Earth, and the spirit of those losers came out of the volcanoes and embodied what was the first human beings. And so that's a real religion, Scientology. But I digress, because that's not a Christian version. But I think the newest version of Christianity is the Mormons, right? The Mormons, who claim that Jesus came to United States in the late 1800s, 1900s, and Joseph Smith actually found the golden tablets with the secret language in Times Square of all places. Times freaking Square of all places. No, it's not Times Square, excuse me, Central Park. He found golden tablets in Central Park. Golden tablets in Central Park. Okay, if you can believe that, he found that. But he in New York Central Park, and Jesus came there and left the golden tablets, and he found it because he's a prophet. And but unfortunately he couldn't read it, so he got his boy Brigham Young to translate it, and they created the Mormon religion. Well, the Christians at the time wasn't feeling that, and they did to the Mormons exactly what the Christians had done to them prior. And so they started to kill the Mormons, literally, actually kill them. The Anabaptists and the Southern Baptists and the Baptists and the Methodists started to murder Mormons, actual human beings, kill them for being Mormon. And that's what caused the Mormons to travel throughout the South and all the way to Utah, where they established a Mormon colony where they could be somewhere safe where they wouldn't be killed. That's why Mormons are in Utah. Have you ever asked yourself, why are so many Mormons in Utah and nowhere else? Because that's the only place that they could live. The other great Christians who were so Christian-like and God-like murdered them, killed them. It wasn't Muslims killing them. It wasn't Hindus killing them. It wasn't, it was actual Christians murdering actual Christians. And so it's some kind of game in the United States. It's some kind of game to create your version of Christianity. And so, listen, there are lots of religions you could be. But I think that it's fair to say that you completely discredit yourself if you call yourself a Christian as if it's some kind of practical, sensible thing, because it's a game. There's 3,000 versions of Christianity. Which one is the right one? Which one of them has an actual line to God? And that doesn't even consider the original version of Catholicism, which is its own version, right? Catholicism, it's one thing, the original, and then you have the Protestant. So who's going to sit up here and say which one of those is the real one? Who's going to sit up here and say this? Which one of those is the sanctified one? Which one of them have a claim to God that the other one doesn't have? Which one of them has a legitimate claim?
Hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't want you to get too far ahead. Question. The Mormons. Because you said there's 3,000 versions of Christianity, which I will agree with you on that one. Because each person worships certain religions, and there's different branch off within the religion that they don't really emphasize or express or really go into detail. My question, the Mormons. How long ago the Mormons migrate from where they're at, I'm not sure which part where they're originally from, to Utah? Is there a timetable?
Yes, there's definitely a timetable. I want to say they got there in the 50s or 60s because when I was studying it, and I haven't looked at it recently, but when I study it, I want to say that they were on the move in the 40s, right before World War II, and then that's when they were being persecuted, and then they made it to Utah in the 50s or 60s. I would have to look up the date again. When you're talking about Christians, they have this funny thing of trying to hold you to being exactly correct about every statistic about them. And I think it's hilarious because I'll admit I don't remember the exact date that the Mormons got to Utah and they established their first colony and started to take over Utah. I'm just trying to think back. I don't know the exact date. But the point, my point isn't what date they got there, right? My point is, what was God doing to cause them to get there in the first damn place? Right? Why did God allow his Christians to persecute his Christians and allow them to create yet another? What is going on with all the versions of Christianity? What do Mormons know that the Baptists don't know, that the Methodists don't know, that the Jehovah's Witnesses don't know? What is going on? Why do we have to have so many versions of something that's supposed to be pure and righteous and straightforward? Why is it so complicated?
Well, I could say as a possibility that maybe the Mormons, and it's just me now, they only follow the Old Testament. Possibly. Because there's two versions, the Old and New Testament. And if there are many branches of Christianity, then there has to be a separation of which part of the Bible they follow. Do they follow the Old Testament or do they follow the New Testament? Because you can't follow both. I hear people say that you follow both.
That's a good point.
But they're lying. Because if we want to be serious about the Old Testament is very ruthless. That's where most of the killing, if we want to go number, and we could just Google it, I guarantee you it's in the Old Testament. Because the New Testament is a little bit more merciful. But back then, people could have been stoned to death. If you were a homosexual, you've been persecuted and something would happen to you, God would turn you to a pillar of salt. If you were, even in battles between brother and brother, where brothers used to have to kill in regards to the favor of God, remember that?
Oh, yeah. I remember it. Well, I'm a preacher's son. I've heard these stories thousands of
in the Old Testament. So
a lot of violence in the Old Testament.
If Christianity was, as it states, the present day, not back then, but in present time, then it obviously makes sense that within this religion, people died. And they died under the officer that my God is better than yours. And I don't follow your faith. So I must kill you or slay you with the sword, which nowadays we don't use swords, we use weapons nowadays. But nonetheless, there was a lot of bloodshed being spilled under the name of Christianity. And I think that's the only religion besides Muslims. And we had to compare which one does more of the butchering. I guarantee it's Christianity. You know.
Well, I've looked into that. But before I get to who does more killing than the other, I gotta reemphasize the key point that initially we're starting with a foundation that there is a higher power, right? That's the automatic assumption that you have to take. You have to assume that there is a higher power, one, and that there's a way to communicate with this higher power. And each religion is claiming that they know the way to communicate with this higher power. And they're going to translate what the higher power means to the other human. And so before we get to what you believe in, how did we get to a point where there is a higher power? Where's the evidence of the higher power? One. And two, if there is a higher power, let's just say we never got to the evidence. Let's just say we skipped over that one and we do all accept there's a higher power. Why would we assume that humans have the translation? Why would we think that another human has the ability to translate for you what this higher power is saying? Doesn't it defeat the purpose of it being a higher power, that it would need a human to communicate to other humans? Wouldn't it just be, as a higher power, wouldn't it be able to communicate for itself? For example, you're the king. Chaos reigns as the king. Chaos reigns makes a law. The people want to understand the law better. So Chaos reigns trains his subjects, some certain few subjects, to explain the law to the people. Okay, Chaos Reign's laws are great, and he has a parade so that the people can shower praise on him. The people at some point see the person, the authority who created the law. Even though if they have questions or so on, they usually go to a representative of him, but they see with their own eyes. Anyone who questions who came up with it, they can see right there and then, boom, Chaos reigns at the parade. We're celebrating the king. We have nothing like that ever in human history for any gods. Not a single one. No matter what the denomination, and I won't even say denomination, for any religion, there has never been an eyewitness of God. Never once has there been, but forget just one eyewitness, because one eyewitness is irrelevant, right? Mm-hmm. Like the whole kingdom, let's say in Chaos Reign's kingdom, there's 2 million people. At the parade, he spends 5 hours traveling 55 miles so that all 2 million people can see him. And everyone can see him at the same time. Where would there be something similar to that in human history for a God? The reason why we have prophets and so on is to explain God to us. But why can't God come down and explain himself to all of us at the same time? Like a president would do, like a king would do, or a queen would do. They would speak to a large audience. Hell, a doctor at a college seminar would have an audience, and each audience member can witness themselves seeing the doctor and witness their other audience members seeing the doctor. When has there ever been a time where one of these gods come down and a large group of people sees them and talks about witnessing, seeing this God speak to all of them? It's never, ever, ever happened. Why? Because God isn't real. And that's a question that people don't ask themselves about Christianity or anything else. Why is it always that we have to get information from another human? The human is flawed. We know humans are flawed. That's the whole purpose of the religion, right? I'm going to fix your human flaws. Well, why would we use a flawed tool to communicate purity to another flawed tool? One of the great examples that Christopher Hitchens, one of the greatest atheist speakers ever, he said, how are you expected to get pure water after you filter it to a dirty filter? That's what it would be like if God wanted to communicate to humans through humans. He would be giving a pure message, his word, and pouring us through a dirty filter, a human, to other humans. That wouldn't produce pure water. So why would he do it? That makes no sense. It wouldn't produce a pure communication. That makes no sense. So if there is a God, there's one thing we know he wouldn't do. He wouldn't use other humans to communicate his pure message because it would inevitably get contaminated by our humanity. Yet we've never once had a God come down and talk to all of us. We have people who said, I met God in a desert alone, and they were speaking to me through a burning bush. Or I met God in a cave, Muhammad, alone, and he was just talking to me. And let me tell you what he said. But why is that even a thing? We should never have that. It should be, I went to the meeting, and I went to Mount Sinai. We all sat down, and God came down and talked to all of us, and we all heard him say the same thing. We verified his communication with each other. We know exactly what God said because all of us heard it clear as day.
I agree. But it's funny. They always say only one person has the capability to hear and communicate to God. No one else. And I think I'm not sure if there's certain text that explains in detail or whoever hears God. Because remember, in the same scriptures say, no one has ever seen God's face and lived. And I had to give this. You didn't hear it? No one
oh, yeah, I hear that.
And said, live. Gunshot for that. So how the hell
Gunshot.
Somebody saying that I have the capability to see and talk to God? How, fool? You were dead. You've been dead.
You would have been dead. And conveniently, every once in a while, they'll have someone who survived. We always have that one random guy who gets granted immortality or something. But let's just give those people who agree with us. They know they read the same text. No one's ever seen God's face and lived. But I'm not asking to see God, right? I'm saying we all meet up at Mount Sinai, we sit down, and God speaks to us. My point is we got to all get the same exact message. And that's the irritation for me, that there's so many people out here who are saying Old Testament, New Testament. Then there's there's more than 3,000 versions of Christianity, and there's at least, 50 versions of the Bible. Completely different, totally different text, totally. And so human beings throughout history have just been changing up the message, which once again makes no sense. How is it possible that an all-powerful being is sitting up there allowing this? This makes no sense. This cannot happen. You can't be all-powerful, all-intelligent, anything, and be such a horrible planner, allow such a terrible execution of your plan. It's not possible. Any being, if God existed and he does things the way things have been done, has to be eliminated out of the conversation for being a God. You can't be a God and be so inept. You can't be a God and be so incompetent. You can't be. Whatever God you are, I'm not worshiping you for sure because you can't handle your own business. Forget me and what I did wrong or what other people did wrong. Your plan was to bring your message to humans through humans, which inevitably would mess up your message. That's not very smart.
You get your message
not
from
smart at all.
Another human. Is it
from another human?
Or the access to communicate with the Almighty, the Creator himself? People can't answer that. You should have, if you're a human being and have living a human existence and experience, you as a being should have the capability to talk, not see God, but able to communicate with your Creator.
And this is a key point, though. It has to be verifiable because in the Muslims' excuse, Muhammad heard it, and there was no witnesses, but he heard it. I don't care if Muhammad heard it. That's not my issue. My issue is, why did he only hear it alone? Because if it was only for him, he would have kept it to himself. Clearly, the message was for all humans. If it was a message and he heard it, it was for everyone. So why would a being, an all-powerful being, give a message for everyone to one person? This makes no sense. If all-powerful being wanted all of us to have a message, he would send it to all of us. And I keep saying this. Why does the message go to a single prophet or two or three? Why doesn't the all-powerful being just speak to all of us at the same time? It is much less likely that we're going to make a mistake with the message if we all hear it at the same time and we all hear it and we verify with each other, like, what did he say? It's much more likely that we're going to make a mistake with the message if we tell one person and we play the telephone game. We've all played the telephone game in school, elementary school or something, where we whisper one thing to one person, that person whispers to the other person, and goes around, and it's a completely different message at the end. And that's the same thing with every religion. That's why there's over 3,000 versions of Christianity. It's a telephone game. Supposedly someone told someone something, and they just kept whispering, and it's been transformed to something totally different. And there's no omniscient being that deserves worship that would be such an idiot, because human beings figure that out on our own. That's why we don't tell people one thing at a time. That's why, speaking of COVID, when the president or the leader of any country, head of state, has a message, they go onto television and broadcast to everyone, and we all get the same message. Whether they're right or wrong, we at least know what the person said. We are sure of what the person said. We judge them and we pick at it, but at least we know exactly what they said. No one knows exactly what God has ever said to anyone, because we don't have any verifiable proof. We got all this he said, she said. We played a telephone game. It's idiotic. It's not a way to give a message. And we should be ashamed as humans that we think there's a God up there doing this nonsense, knowing that we as humans figured out long ago that that doesn't work. There's no God. And there damn sure isn't a God that does.
Wait. Let me give you a round of applause.
All right, before you applaud me too much.
And one thing
I appreciate it.
One thing I do want to say, anytime that there needs to be a solid message, just like you said, the person that's the free leader of the world, mostly your higher, or most like a president, they go on national TV and broadcast who everybody could see and hear and witness first hand with their
at the same time. That's right. That's right.
So
That's
you don't
right.
get the message by one person. No, you should have the capability to communicate. But let's be honest, it's a hustle. If one person has an answer and you go to him, wouldn't it make sense that you give your resource, meaning your fiat currency, to that person since he has the capability to communicate with the Almighty? Imagine.
And you make a great point, brother. And now we need to think about this, right? So we're going to give the religious people the benefit of the doubt that they don't give up. If there's a God and he didn't choose to communicate to all of us at once, then the alternative is what you just said, that we could go, we as humans figured out a way to communicate with him. But think about it. Is there one way to communicate with the Almighty? Is there a specific way to pray that we have proven to work? Or are there many, an innumerable amount of ways to pray? Why is there so many ways to pray? Why do the Catholics have one way of communicating, and then the Muslims have another way of communicating? The Muslims got to pray 5 times a day. They have to. Why? Why do the Hindus have a different way to pray, and the Sikhs have a different way? And why is there so many ways? Because we just said that the Almighty didn't come and talk to all of us at once, which would have been the smartest, most basic, simple way to communicate his message. But the alternative, the second best way, is for us to speak to him, and we would know, he or she, we would know exactly that we're speaking to this Almighty being, and we would be getting a clear response all the time. And we don't have that either. So there's no pathway to communicate with this Almighty being, even though religions keep selling us the idea that they figured it out. The Muslims say, no, don't pray once a day, pray 5 times a day. And they don't even realize that at the beginning of Islam, you used to pray 30 times a day. They cut it down to 5. The average Muslim doesn't know that.
Uh-oh.
Come on now. Listen, I study religions. I'm not only on Christianity. And Hindus have a whole different way to pray. And Sikhs have a whole different way to pray. And Native, and let's talk about the pagans and the polytheists. The Romans before they became Catholics, they used to be the Roman pagan religion. They were Roman pagans, and they had Romulus, and they had names that you should all be familiar with: Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury. These are all names of Roman gods. The planets are named after Roman gods. Why are they named after Roman gods? Because Roman gods dominated the world, at least the Western world, what would become the Western world prior to Christianity. So the Romans named the celestial bodies that they found before the Christians ever even existed. And there was a way to pray to Romulus. There was a way to pray to Saturn and Jupiter. And then the Greeks took over, and we all know about Zeus and Hades and Aphrodite, and there was a temple of Aphrodite, and all these things existed. And now we're going to sit here and pretend like, oh, that doesn't exist because I'm a Christian. That does exist. There are people who are still Roman pagan. There are people who are still Greek pagan. There are people who still pray to those gods. We're in the United States of America, which used to be the Native Americans' land, and there are thousands of different Native American gods. Thousands. They have different ways to pray to them, and they have different ways to worship them. Well, what is the other gods doing while the Native Americans are over here worshiping to their God? Why don't we have one pathway to get the information? The reason is there's no damn God. It's all made up by humans. Humans made God, not the other way around. God didn't make any humans. Humans made God. And so each group of humans made their own pathway, their own version, their own idea, and they execute it the way they want because there's no limits. There's no actual God to tell you yes or no. There's no actual God to put you in your place. And the winner, whoever come in and kill the other group, gets to say, well, you were wrong. Why? Well, we got to kill you, so you must be wrong. But that doesn't make any sense to me.
Doesn't make sense at all. Doesn't make good sense at all. Well, let me give a
So before you put out the number to everyone, I wanted to share this quick list of 5, because remember the topic of our show, why you should leave religions. How do you know God is not real? So I made a list of 5 important ways that we know God's not real, and I hope the callers would call in and ask about this, or at least inquire, or at least hear it. So here are my 5. My list of 5 reasons why you know God is not real. And anyone who wants to follow me at Dr. Blaque on YouTube, Papa Abrigo on Facebook, and you see my hashtag Atheist Prophet, because I have tons and tons of anti-religious information to share, facts. So number 1 reason that you know that God isn't a real religion, it can't be trusted. There are too many gods. There are many, many, many gods. We're talking about Christianity, and Christianity pretends to be a monotheism. Monotheism means single God, mono meaning one, theist meaning belief in a higher power. So Christianity pretends to be a monotheist group, but they're not, because everyone knows of the Trinity. And it's funny, our version of Christianity has no Trinity, because the Trinity means 3. Trinity means 3. And so Christians say there's 3 of them, but they're all one. So apparently Christians want you to stop believing in proper math. They want you to not think that it's a 3, it's a 1. It makes no daggone sense. It makes no sense. A triangle is one thing, but it has 3 sides, right? So they're trying to make it sound like it's a triangle, but there's 3 separate entities. So a triangle doesn't have 3 separate parts. A triangle has 3 sides that are all attached to one, but the Trinity is 3 separate pieces. And one of those pieces actually supposedly came down to earth. So Christians can't even figure out how many gods they worship. But there are many, many gods. Like I said earlier, the Native Americans have thousands of gods. Hinduism has 1,000 gods by itself. Pagans had gods, the Greeks and the Romans, and many, 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 many gods throughout history. So there's too many gods for us to act as if this is a practical thing. But another thing that I think I read in Christopher Hitchens' book, God Isn't Real, it says, okay, with all these gods, all the God claims, well, actually, Matt Dillahunty on YouTube says this all the time. Of all the God claims, there's thousands of God claims. Of all the God claims, they can all be false. Every God claim can be false, but they all can't be true because they're incompatible. So the Hindu God isn't compatible with the Christian God, which isn't compatible with the pagan gods. Zeus and Romulus aren't really compatible with the Native American gods. So all the God claims can be false, but they all can't be true because they all can't be compatible. And a lot of people try to play off like, oh, there's just one God. Oh, all these different religions are really just talking about the same thing. Well, those people are ignorant. They haven't studied religion, and they don't know that most of those gods are not compatible. Now, the big 3 are compatible because it's all the same fake nonsense. Christianity and Islam are plagiarisms of Judaism. So they have a lot of the same stuff in them. But even Allah, as is called God, that God, Allah God, isn't the same as Jehovah. And the way he operates isn't the same. And for nothing else, Jehovah doesn't write in Arabic only, doesn't speak only Arabic. Apparently Jehovah speaks English and writes in English. So we're going to have to start being honest. There are many more than one God. Even the Bible says itself, I'm a jealous God, have no other gods before me. The word gods in that sentence means that there have to be other gods that existed for you to have them before God or not have. So even the Bible admits there's more than one God. So all the gods can be false, but they all can't be true. They're not compatible. Number 2 reason, atheists. We haven't talked about it much, but a lot of people are going to say, oh, you're atheist. Yes, I'm technically an atheist, but guess what? I'd like to tell everyone today listening, we're all atheists. Every single human being is atheist. We're all born atheists. We wouldn't know about God or religion if not for people to poison us. So as we become more mature and older, we start to hear about God. But if human beings never talked about God, there would be no God. Atheist, the A means non, and theist means believer. So atheists, we're not believers. But guess what? Since there's thousands of gods, and you only believe in one or a few of those thousands of gods, no one believes in all of the thousands of gods, you're an atheist to at least one of them, if not tens of thousands of them. I'm just an open atheist. I'm an atheist to all of them. But we're all atheists. All right, number 3, there's no empirical evidence of a God. Empirical being the most important thing. People try to make logical arguments for God, try to have logical evidence. And I don't even agree with any of the supposed logical evidence of God, but that's just, rationale and philosophical nonsense. Philosophy is funny like that. You can have evidence of something in philosophy, but it's not practical. And that's helpful sometimes. It's theoretical evidence. In theory, this might work, but it doesn't really work. But there's no empirical evidence, and that's what our world is about these days. Technology, practicality, empiricism. So I'm an empiricist, and I can't be religious because as an empiricist, there's zero empirical evidence of any God. A simple bit of evidence would be someone can introduce me to their God. If you say, all right, I'm a Jehovah's Witnesses, and my God is here, and I was like, oh, well, bring him over next time you come knocking at my door and talking about him. No one's ever been able to do that. No one can show you God. And no one can also show you anything God can do. For example, if I said right now, someone calls in and says, well, I know God. Okay, great. Tell me something that you could produce from your God right now on this phone call. And no one will be able to do it because there's no empirical evidence of God. Everything that people have for evidence is their faith. And faith isn't evidence. By definition, faith isn't evidence. So there's no evidence of God. Number 4, technically no empirical evidence of God. Number 4, it doesn't make logical sense. So to me, if there's no empirical evidence of God, there's so many gods, no one could prove that their God claim is better than the other, that their God is more real than the other. This makes no sense. So why would I believe something that makes no sense? Why would I spend my time with something that makes no sense? There's too many things that we do know. And everyone likes to say, well, you don't know. The universe is so large, you don't know. Okay, I admit there's lots of things that we don't know as human beings. But there's so many things that we do know as humans. And I like to understand the things that is knowable, the things that we can know. I like to focus on those things and learn those things because I could spend my whole life trying to learn the things that can be known and not even learn those things. So I'm not going to make a lot of time for things that we don't know. Like maybe God is hiding on the 15th quadrant of the forest star. We can't know that. And why would I waste my time trying to figure that out? I don't think it makes any sense to get into this deeper version of God, this deeper philosophy of God. And there's something called logical fallacies. Logical fallacies mean logic being the way you think, and fallacy meaning error. And there's a list of common logical fallacies. Anyone listening could Google it right now. Common logical fallacies. And you'll find things like ad hominem. And you'll find things like circular reasoning. And you'll find things like special pleading. These are terms for the common logical fallacies because every human has an error in thinking. And since we have been writing things for many years, human beings have been writing down the common ones. Well, every reason for God can be defined in a logical fallacy. That means everyone who thinks there's a God, any reason that they give will fall under one of the common logical fallacies because trying to believe in God makes no sense. Religion makes no sense. And fifth and last, we all have the same human experience. And this is my favorite one. We all have the same human experience, right? We all get sick. We all eventually die. We all are born. We all love. We all hate. We all eat. We all sleep. We all have the same human experience. No matter what happens in our human experience, There isn't a single religion that has an advantage or a better human experience than any other person who's not in their religion. Even though many religions claim that they will provide a better human experience if you join them, not a single one of them can provide you a better human experience than another religion. What I mean is the Baptists don't have any higher intellect than the Mormons, and the Jehovah's Witnesses don't have a lower death rate than the Baptists, and the Muslims don't have more successful businesses because of their Islam than the Hindus. No one has a benefit that comes directly from their religion that any other human being doesn't have. And that is a critical damnation of the whole religious concept. Because what's the point of being religious? What do you get? Which is what I said earlier in this conversation, that there is none, and everyone says, well, since we can't prove to you one right now, well, just wait until you die. And to me, that makes no sense. That obviously makes no sense. It's an open and shut case. It's a checkmate that you can't provide me anything in life, even though you claim to be able to provide me things in life. You can't provide me anything, and then you're still going to say, well, it's all about faith. It's all about what you believe. Well, I choose to believe in things that have empirical evidence to back them up, and I don't want to waste my time with things that are some ancient goat farmer's philosophy that is irrelevant to today. I mean, name the holy book that can give you quantum physics or quantum computing, or hell, just teach you how to text, right? We just came up with a generation who's like, I don't know how to use these cell phones. Well, read the Bible and ask them. Oh, it's not in there? Go figure. What a surprise. Because the Bible isn't a book that can teach you everything. It isn't a book that helps you to understand everything in life. And there isn't a religious book that does do that for you. If you want to learn, you're going to have to go to school and learn like everybody else. And what you're going to learn in school is what human beings have discovered. None of it's divine. And so those are my 5 reasons.
It is so laughable. Hey, have you ever argued and gone back and forth with one they call a Hebrew Israelite?
You know, I've been looking forward to it. They're very military. I've been looking forward to it because I watched some of their stuff on YouTube, try to understand the exact details of where the Hebrew Israelites are coming from, and I find it to be so insulting that African Americans want to steal the history of the Hebrews. They're so desperate to have a group that they're going to steal at any cost a famous group. So, and the thing that really it's insulting to me and upsets me about this is the Hebrews can care less about you. They don't want anything to do with you. There is a country of Israel now, and it was given to Arabs and Europeans. The same Jews.
Europeans, they're mostly is Jewish people.
There are mostly Arabs, but guess what? If you ever paid attention, if you look at Benjamin Netanyahu, he's a very European-looking Arab. He doesn't look as tan and as brown as most Arabs. He wouldn't be in the same lineup for a terrorist as the people from Saudi Arabia or from Pakistan or from Kenya, all right? So let's be clear. All those European-looking Jews were bequeathed the nation of Israel. And guess who was left out of that? Any kind of African-looking person. Ain't no Africans ever been elected or a serious part of the nation of Israel. We give them billions of dollars a year, right? Right? Come on, let's talk real, right? So there's a whole nation they won't allow that. Well, why not? If these daggone Hebrews are so true, if these Hebrews are the real Hebrews, why haven't they convinced anybody? Why can't they convince the people in Israel right now? If you're real, if you have this proof, if you're so real, why are you the only ones who believe it? What's stopping you? What's your claim? You have no evidence. There is no African version of the Hebrews. The Hebrews were Semites. The Semites were a large group of Arabs, people from Mesopotamia. They weren't African. They have come across Africans. They have been conquered by Africans. They have, interacted with Africans, but they're not naturally African. They're not naturally Negroes. But we have some some African Americans who are claiming that they have some key to the history of the Semites, and no one's buying it. And so I would love to have a conversation with them about their failure. Hopefully it wouldn't get violent, because, when you're dead wrong and someone calls you out, like I will, straight about the facts, not about what you think and what you believe, but about the facts, that you got nothing and you ain't gonna never have nothing. I would love to hear the excuses to me about why that is. Why are they so desperate to claim the nation of Israel anyway? Why not claim something else? There's a whole continent of Africa with all kinds of countries. Why not claim them? Why are you promoting a group of people who can't stand you, who disdain you, who have no use for you at all? Whose benefit would it be that the Israelites are African? What do you think you're going to get out of that? You think you're going to sit at the table? You think you're going to get invited to the next UN meeting? Like, what do you think would happen if people actually thought you Africans were actually part of the nation of Israel? I mean, it makes no sense to me at all. And I'd love to hear someone make sense. Of course, the whole concept of it is nonsense, is my point. Is this battle for it's just like trying to get daddy to it's not even superiority. It's like trying to get daddy to recognize you. It's like African Americans are the bastard child of the world, of at least of Western world. And instead of accepting that they don't really want you and doing things that make you proud and standing up on the things that you have done, because African Americans have a lot of things that they've done to be proud of. As African Americans, as a group or as individuals, I can't fathom how people who think that if they become part of the Jews, that they'll get some kind of credibility or get some kind of benefit. The Jews, they've suffered a lot for what they have. All the Christians used to kill the Jews. The Catholics, the Christians, they all used to murder Jews. That used to be a very popular thing. So the African Americans and the Jews have a lot in common, but the Jews had the whole European time. They spent a lot of time after they got kicked out of, the Persian Empire, right? The Jews were sent wandering. That's how they ended up in Europe. After the Persian Empire kicked them out, after the Persian Empire had an edict against them and was chopping off their heads, they ran into Europe, and that's how they became more European-looking than Arab-looking. They've suffered, but they're not going to let you in. You guys aren't going to, African Americans aren't going to be accepted into Israel with open arms. It's not going to happen. And why would you think it would? Why would you think it would? So I can't wait to hear in person. I've heard some of their conversations on the streets of Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia and New York. They were talking just to the audience, but I'd like some direct conversation with them if I could. A person from the Hebrew nation, they're a joke. They should go to college, get a degree, and start a bank. Like you said, one of these wonderful black-owned businesses, do something productive with their time, because no one's buying that you're actually – I mean, really, right? Right? Do something productive with your time. Do something that you could actually succeed at, because you're never going to convince people with no evidence other than, well, we really feel this way, that they're actually Jews. They're not. They're not. They're not Semites. They're not Jews, and they're not going to get any of the benefits of being one. And that's bearing out every day, right? I just want to know, why do you want that? Why would you choose that as a path? How does that help you in saying, oh, we're really your cousins, we're really the black Jews? And where are you going with this? That's what I want to know. Do you know? Have you ever asked them? Do you know why they're determined to be shunned by their fellow Jews?
Damn. That's a very good question. I never asked a Hebrew Israelite this question, to be fair honest. I think it should be asked. But I'll tell you one thing, because they view every person that is what they call it, especially what they call it, that they look at people that is Latin descent, Native Americans as their brothers. But for our history is, and what I'm seeing personally, that's not the case, Paco. That's not the case. Each person, different tribes, different cults, follow their own tribe. And when it comes to black folks, we are not really got it together like that, as it seems. We want to just get along and band and nest in other cults and other people and religions. We do not really fight to have our own or something that's separate from everybody else. Now, regardless of they say that our people are trained to think that we shouldn't, But we all know everybody else plays the power game, and everybody works within their own little small circle or their collective. And our people have still not figured it out. And one of the few things that teach and preach this is the religion, unfortunately. But before you say anything, let me give the call number because I want people to get a chance to voice their opinion. The call number for today's stream is 712-770-4160. The access code is 917-324-pound. I repeat, 712-770-4160. Access code 917-324-pound. Today's subject, T.R.S. presents Why You Should Leave Religion and How God Is Not Real with Dr. Blaque. So that's my answer to it, Dr. Blaque.
I appreciate that, and no, you're onto something. But I want to say in response to that I'm very pro-Black, and I feel that a lot of African Americans above all Africans in the world, really should be proud of what they've done and have accomplished some of the greatest accomplishments of all Africans in the last at least 100, if not 200 years. African Americans have a lot to be proud of, a lot to hold their head up, and the rest of us, other Africans from the other parts of the Western Hemisphere and even from Africa itself, we should follow the lead of the very great, successful African Americans who have laid out a pathway. And there are Africans, so that's the first thing I want to say. There are Africans who are following the lead of the African Americans who have done great things. The African continent is getting itself under control, at least by African leaders. There's huge. Of course, it's not all at once for sure. Rwanda's looking magnificent. I met a guy 2 years ago who lives in Rwanda, was telling me about how amazing Rwanda looks now, how it has come up. And then you got to talk about other things like telecommunications. There's a company called Glow. So those of us who get to travel to the other side of the world, who get to travel into the Gulf and Sea, there's a company called Glow. Glow is one ginormous telecommunications company. It's owned and ran by an African brother. I don't know his name, but the president and CEO of Glow, I forgot his name. He has commercials over there, and like many places, the African continent has more cell phones than computers. The average person in Africa was likely to have a cell phone, but not a computer. So if you have a telecommunications company, you're killing it by the billions. And one of the major companies in Africa, Glow, is one of the major companies, I think he's a Nigerian businessman who established Glow. And it's something beautiful. So we shouldn't be so disparaging. We shouldn't be so negative. A lot of positive things happening, and we just got to keep building on it. But, you said something that's key, and it's very sad, and it bothers the hell out of me. Those same African brothers and sisters from the continent of Africa currently, who I'm happy to see are coming up, are also still so closed-minded when it comes to philosophy that the African brothers, I've met a lot of brothers and sisters from Kenya, Uganda. These are the people I work with when I'm overseas. Kenyans, Ugandans, Nigerians, South Africans. Those are the 4 major countries. And I read Trevor Noah's book, Born a Crime. And in his book, he talked about how in South Africa today, they have this weird mix of African spiritualism, but also Christianity. So his mother is a hardcore Christian, but his family and friends will have different spiritual type things. For example, you can go to court in South Africa, and it has to have been, let's say, 2014, 15. I don't know if it's still the same law in South Africa today, but when I read the book 2015, 16, he was saying you can go to South Africa and you could accuse someone of killing your family member with witchcraft. So if you prayed that they would get hit by lightning and they happen to get hit by lightning, you could take them to court, a real court, a judiciary, and charge them with using witchcraft on it. So they still believe in that kind of spiritual power, even though they're mostly Christian. And that bothers the heck out of me. And so I said to a lot of my fellow Africans, I always ask them, what religion were you before your family became Christian? Because unlike Americans who were stolen from Africa, African Americans were stolen from Africa and were forced to not remember their language and their history and their culture. Well, the people in Africa don't have the same excuse. So you have been in Nigeria for your family's entire existence. You weren't never forced to another country and learned a new language. You've always been from Nigeria. You've always been from South Africa. You've always been from Kenya, right? Well, what religion were you before the Europeans came and taught you Christianity? And the fact that most of them, matter of fact, I have not yet met a single African who could tell me what religion their family was 5 generations ago before they got Christianity. Not a single one can tell me. That makes me angry to my core because they're so hardcore Christians. They're so determined to be Christian. They're so motivated to be Christian. They love Jesus so damn much. And white Jesus didn't give them shit. Jesus hasn't given them a damn thing. They're ass poor. They're in the struggle as much as ever, digging out, clawing out. That's why we're all together working in the Middle East trying to, make what we can. And their country is in the struggle. And everything is as difficult as ever been, and they over here praying to Jesus left and right. And it makes absolutely no sense. Listen, you can pray to whoever you want. I know religion doesn't work. But what upsets me is, why did you choose to accept the European version? Why are we so committed to accepting our slave master's view of life? Let me say that again. Why are we Africans so committed to accepting our slave master's view of life? Shouldn't we have some self-respect and at least think differently than our slave master? I'm thinking. I'm not saying doing, right? Doing is second. But why can't we just think differently than our slave masters? What kind of sense does that make, to accept your slave master's mental slavery tactics? You're free now. I always want to say to them, you're free now. I'm saying it to everyone who can hear me. You're free now. Have some self-respect. No self-respecting African would be a Christian. Now, I give the Ethiopians a break because they were there at the beginning of Christianity. So if you're Ethiopian, I'll give you a little bit of a break. But the rest of you damn Africans, the rest of you Africans, all of you African Americans who came from the west side of Africa, Ghana, Togo, Ivory Coast, those countries.
Nigeria.
It's not really west, but some of us probably came from Nigeria. All of you Africans who came from South Africa, your family had nothing to do, your generation had nothing to do with the creation of Christianity. And you're so Christian. Why? Why the hell would you accept your slave master's brainwashing? Don't you have anything better to do? Can't you come up with something that's your own? Have your own God. Have a God who cares about you. Have a God who loves you. Have a God who looks like you, for crying out loud, who has your best interest in heart. Why would you accept your slave master's God? That makes no sense. And for the Israelites, we just talked about them. If the Jews taught us one thing, at least they don't accept anybody else's God. And that's commendable. I give them credit for that. None of their stories are real. It's all mythology. They were never slaves in Egypt, at least. I researched that. They were never slaves in Egypt. The Exodus was a lie. It's a myth. It's a complete lie. It's not even a myth. It's just a lie. It's a straight up lie. They were never, ever slaves in Egypt. They never had. We know the 12 plagues didn't happen. But I went to Egypt myself in person and studied the possibility of the Egyptians enslaving the Hebrews, and there's zero evidence that there were ever any Jewish people released from Egypt. But you got to give the Jews credit. At least they held on to their own beliefs or stole them from someone else. Why can't we Africans do the same? Why can't we come up with our own beliefs? It's a self-respect thing. Respect yourself. I'm not believing my slave master's God. I may become religious one day again. It's a slim to none chance. It's less than slim to none. But I can tell you the one thing that I'll never, ever, ever do again in my life, I will never be a Christian again. Just out of self-respect, I can't claim my slave master's God because that bastard didn't help me or my ancestors. So he's eliminated from possibility of worship if he didn't help me, right? Mm-hmm. That just makes basic sense. That's just basic common sense. Support the people who help you. What's so hard about that? Support the God that's looking out for you. What's hard about that? Very disappointing, Brother Chaos. Very disappointing. I said there's 3 groups of people I think should never be Christian. Africans, for the obvious reason, slavery, right? God didn't save us. He just put us into slavery. Most of our ancestors discovered Christianity through slavery. So Christianity existed for 1,000 years before slavery, and we didn't get it until slavery. So if God exists, he's telling us something. He doesn't care about us. So Africans shouldn't be Christian. Homosexuals shouldn't be Christian because it's a strict rule of Judaism, Islam, and Christianity that you can't be homosexual. So God made you gay, but you got to fix yourself and not be gay anymore. So if you're going to be religious, at least be a religion where it's not illegal to be who you are. You're born a homosexual. Some people don't believe that, but it's pretty much proven to be true. Most people are born homosexual, except for a few people who have been violated at a young age and forced into that. But the majority of homosexuals, they do it by their own choice. They were born that way. And why would you be a Christian where it's abomination to be who you are?
A homosexual, Paco. Who said
well,
that?
It's not who. It's been researched for decades upon decades. One of the key pieces of research that you're born a homosexual is between 6 and 10% of all mammals are homosexual, and we've known this for thousands of years. Lions, tigers, bears, goats, sheep, donkeys, cows.
You mean
between
like an
6
animal
and 9% of every mammal?
Intercourse?
Between 6 and 10% of every.
Same sex?
That's right. They have long-term homosexual relationships. You can Google it. It's easy to find. Multiple colleges have done the research on this. And it's been around farmers have known this for thousands of years. And so those mammals are just like us. We're all mammals. And so that means between 6 and 10% of human beings are born homosexual. And that's insignificant, right? That means 95% of all mammals are heterosexual for procreation. But there's that 5 to 8% who are going to choose not to be part of procreation, who are naturally born attracted to the same sex, just like our fellow animals, just like our fellow donkeys and goats and dogs and sheep. It's very well documented. So the evidence shows that being born gay is normal. Some people don't accept it. That's okay, but that's just the evidence.
Do you know that in this society especially, and there was a special neuroscientist, he deals biology, he has revealed and proven, and then there was pushback on this channel that this man is crazy, that no one could create what we call a certain chemical to, I guess, mess with the, we could say genetics, but we could say mess with the estrogen, the testosterone of humans to, make them what we consider more gay. They have actually created something like that, and one in the field did prove this, and he was ostracized and silenced. So let's go by that there is a small percent that have shown that, right? Okay, we could probably have that conversation. But when we see it now today, that what we're seeing today, that is not only push, but they now chemically industrialize the society for one reason and one reason only, to start to not only promote it, but to slow down what we call the population of people. Which we already know that there's always, in any society, there's always going to be constantly trends of booms, regardless of what man is doing to manipulate the environment. So what's the best thing what they always, and you hear this common conversation, I got to reduce the population. What in the end game I could do to accomplish this greater goal? Well, we could go by, say, since they've been always talking about this, they always look at who has the greater potential of procreation, mostly people that are darker hued. So how do we slow down? Many ways. You could do it by economics, which is always the first and top thing priority. Because when you have infrastructure, most people nowadays are going to say, we don't need more cubs, because now we don't have an environment that's spread out for them. That's one way. The other way, you do chemicalize. Like I said, I forgot what they call the special chemical. I'll have to YouTube it again, but if I do, and the third thing, and we could say like molestation, rape plays a role. I could say that's third thing, but a little bit more deeper. We could now give it rewards and promote it in institutions. You get me? So there's many ways to now make people not only feel comfortable, but to persuade people that this is a way of life, which I find problematic. Now, for those that do fall under the cracks, okay, you have some of a small community and you live your life as is. But you should not be, as a person that is living that life, push your ideology, beliefs, and your sickness to others. Because the majority of the population, as much as we say, are heterosexual. They're not going to bother
So
you. They're not going to hurt you.
but I agree with you. Wait. I agree with you.
Yeah, and
I agree with you. But if the majority, if the majority is heterosexual, then what's the wrong with promoting homosexual? The majority, and it's not even a close majority. It's not like 51-49. It's 95 at the lowest. 93% of mammals are heterosexual. What's wrong with that 7% of homosexuals promoting homosexuality? What are you going to lose? There's no reason to object to 7% of the population being obvious and outspoken about it. There's no threat to humanity that way. They're not even close. It's not even 10% by any estimation. And just real quick before you answer my question, just let me say this to be accurate. So there's newsmedical.net did 1,500 animal species that practice homosexuality. Of course, the world famous National Geographic has a homosexuality among animals. That's 2004. So Stanford did research on the homosexuality. So I didn't make any of this up. These are accredited, very credible, well-known sources who did the research on the number. I didn't make up the number. Between 5 and 9% of mammals are homosexual. That's a number that they came up with from the research. And I'm just asking you, it's less than 10%. No one's estimating 10%. The highest I found was 9%. Usually it stops at 7%. What's the threat to human beings if 7% of our population is homosexual?
And the 9%, is it here in the West or is out elsewhere? No.
They didn't do in countries because they're not looking at it as a social thing. They're talking about just born. Yeah, globally, the highest place I found was 9%, but that's a rare number. The average is between 6 and 8% of mammals are homosexual. And remember, they're basing this on evidence of animals that are domesticated, and then they went out to animals who are not domesticated, and then they're looking at humans last. They're comparing all of the evidence from the different mammals, because we domesticate a lot of mammals, and then they went out to the other mammals, and then they went to us. So what's the threat if less than 10% of our population is homosexual? What's the threat to humanity?
You know, it's interesting since it said. So let's go there. What happens if we said that they keep track of the actual numbers, and they will present it to what we want to see the actual numbers. Remember, there's no set of people amongst our people that's doing the numbers to validate and doing the actual crunching numbers, doing data, going through the same data, checking people and all that stuff. We're getting our information from other sources, which I tell people many times. When you get things from other sources, you can keep that in mind, but no one's saying that they got the real data and they only present what you want to see. My question, what happens if the population does surpass 10%?
To me, it's the same thing as if it's at 10%. There's no threat. If 85% of all mammals were heterosexual and 15% of all mammals were homosexual, there's no threat. Think about it. Amongst heterosexuals, humanity has already started to decline in procreation. A lot of people aren't having babies like they used to. It's no longer needed.
And there's a reason for that.
Yes, there's many reasons. So we're leaving out the homosexual reason. We're talking about just amongst heterosexuals, they have stopped having as many kids. And we're at over 7 billion people. So what's the threat if we slow down in having children in a planet that we are wasting a lot of resources as it is? What does it hurt us to stop having as many children? So the argument can't be procreation. I know that. I don't know what the argument is, but I know what it can't be. We can't argue that we need to have more kids. Not only do we have a planet that's extremely full of people, but we also have a lot of orphans in every country around the world. And this is my argument against people who argue pro-life. Before you tell a person they can't have an abortion or can't have a child, they have to keep the child. You tell me what you're doing about the children who exist that aren't living a proper life as it is. We're not taking care of the orphans, but we want to force people to have kids. This makes no sense. So all of that is back to the original point. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
It's interesting you mentioned about the children. And I agree that most people that either they can have children or they, let's say they have 1 or 2 children, it would not hurt to adopt a child here and there. But how I look at Paco, human beings are selfish. They don't want to raise someone else's kids from what I'm seeing. This could be me. I could be wrong. But if we have abundance of children in orphanages and across the globe, especially in first world, and we could say third world countries, but let's say we live in the first world, we have orphanages where there's an abundance of kids that's not taken in through parents is a problem. You get me? And
I agree with you. It's a big problem.
About what happens to children in the orphanage.
It's a horror story.
Yeah. So, like I said, these are things that people could easily fix. Now, no one say that when you adopt a kid, the kid's going to come out perfect. No. Most children, if you really sit down and have the conversation, and this is why people don't really sit there and go to these orphanages and just talk to the children and ask them, why would you want to be in this family? And most children, if you look at it, depending on the age, they will articulate tell you why. Because let me tell you something, it's not nice living in an orphanage most of your life. A lot of women, children that grow from 0 to adults, they feel that they're neglected, that no one wants them, or that it bothers their psyche. And you know what happens when children are neglected and don't feel that they feel loved? They're going to inflict that same trauma to others. It's a
to the child that they have. Absolutely. Hurt people hurt people. Hurt people. But let's get back to the center topic. I was just saying there's three groups of people that I don't think should be Christian. There's the Africans, because that slavery proved that the Christian God hates us. Then the homosexuals, because it's illegal in Christianity to be homosexual, it's an abomination. And the last most important group is women. All of these ancient religions are I'm going to say it. You know I'm the black male feminist. Y'all check out my channel on YouTube, Dr. Black, the black male feminist. Women have always been second-class citizens. Of the ancient religions, there is only one that I found that has the idea of equality for women. One religion that I found that has the idea, not even the practice, but the idea of equality for women, and that is the Sikh religion. Sikh. The people with the head ties, they tie up their hair. They keep their hair long. The men keep their hair long, and they have that turban on their head at all times. That religion has at least embedded in its religious writing the equality of women. I challenge anyone, all of you Christians listening to this show, show me in the Bible where it says that women are equal to men. Show me a verse. I want it in those exact words. Just like the Bible says, thou shalt not kill, clear, straightforward. Don't do that. Show me where it says women and men are equal. Clear, just like that. You won't find it. I've looked, and I know you won't find it, but I challenge you. I challenge anyone to show me the equality of women. Now, people say, Jesus let Mary rub his feet with oil, or Jesus' mama was Mary, and all these other ignorant, backwards, daggone, petty excuses for the fact that we know culturally, one, that women had no rights in first century Judaism or Roman culture. And secondly, women have never been equal in society. We're still working on trying to get women equal in society today, but that's no excuse for a God. How could a God not know that? Just like he didn't know that we weren't supposed to have African slaves, he also didn't know that women are supposed to be equal, even though they're 51% of the global population. So what kind of God is making rules for the minority anyway? None of this makes any sense. So those three groups should never be Christian, because God clearly doesn't like you or care about you or value you. And so I'm out of there, and I'm encouraging all homosexuals, all women, and all Africans to join me in vowing to never, ever, ever again be susceptible to Christianity, Christian philosophy. And there are other religions also that I could put in there. Judaism isn't far off, and Islam, I mean, they're just as bad. They're a newer, plagiarized version, but these things we should think about. We should leave them. And I'll say this before I really need to open the calls and see if we get any questions. But I'll say this: anyone who's out there thinking, well, you say don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. It's so wrong with religion. Blah blah blah. What are your solutions? Well, I'm a solution-oriented person.
Wait, stop. We're not gonna go to solutions. I'm gonna give a call one more time, because I have maybe 1 or 2 questions, because I'm gonna soon wrap this up. And for those that have their questions now, You better call in now or very hold your peace. And I see somebody raise their hand. Imagine that. But before I take the call, Paco, and keep that in mind, your solutions. Keep that in mind. Can you do that?
Yes, sir.
All right, let me go in the chat room, and then I'm going to open your line, caller. One guy wrote, in the 4th century, the Ethiopian Empire was one of the first in the world to officially adopt Christianity as the state religion. That's the first comment. Second comment.
Yes, I made that point.
I think Calcondo in 451, the Menaphysites, which included the vast majority of the Christians in Egypt and Ethiopia, were called heretics under the common name of Coptic Christians. That's the third. That's the second comment.
Yes.
Comment,
they still exist.
While no longer distinguishing as a state religion, the Ethiopian Orthodox, what they call Tawadin or Tabu Church, remains the majority Christian denomination. That's it. So now, I just had to let that out the way, and I see the line.
I appreciate that. And I want to say to those writers, I appreciate your comments. I went to Ethiopia. I went and I almost got a chance to sit, but they wouldn't let me sit in his seat. Emperor Selassie I's Haile Selassie I I, his throne. I went to the museum, the National Museum of Ethiopia in Addis Ababa, and I didn't sit in it. We weren't allowed to sit, but I do have a picture of it. It's beautiful. It's red. It's my favorite color. And I went to Ethiopia now, and I went. Yes, it is. Of course, I had to shout it out. And I also went to Shashamani, where the Rastafarians is, and people forget that Rastafarian is also a religion. A newer plagiarized version of Judaism, where they at least try. Give them a little bit of credit. Rastafarians try to make God black, at least something for the Africans who clearly the Christian God hates. But what upsets me about the daggone Rastafarians is they didn't take their time and really create something worth. They didn't follow through all the way. They made a couple of little tiny adjustments, but they're basically just fake part-time Christians, right? They read the Bible, and they tell you to read the Bible. They read the Bible. They talk about the Bible. They talk about all these Jewish views of things. And it's like, don't be lazy. If you're going to make up a religion, make up your own religion. Get your own holy book. Do your due diligence. Craft it and go through the process of establishing your theology in total from beginning to end. And they didn't. And every time they run into a little speed bump, they just steal the theology that's already existed. They plagiarize the theology from Christians, and it's pathetic. Do your work. If you're going to do it, or just be a Christian. I mean, the Christians have spent the last 400 years creating every different kind of religion. They can come version of Christianity. They can come up with. The Lisa Rosses could do the same. So that's my objection. But let's not forget the Rastas are a religion too. A cheap bootleg religion, but it's a religion.
Okay. Now, your callers. And let me see. Did I give the call? All right, I give the call number already. Y'all know what it is. The first call, open up. Caller, open line. Who's this?
Thanks for taking my call, Chaos. That was me that posted those comments in the chat room.
Okay.
And I would like to speak as to where I agree with your host, and then I would like to go into where I disagree with him.
Okay. Let's have it. Yeah.
All right. I agree with the gentleman when he says that there is an innate quality to homosexuality. I believe there is something about it that is innate, excluding those people who have been guided into it through abuse or sexual perversion or otherwise. Although I believe that in many of those cases, those people who accept it as a lifestyle probably had an inclination toward it anyway. But I do believe there's an innate quality in it, so I'm not going to argue with you about that. Now,
I appreciate that, sir.
Yeah, but here's what I mean. After all, when you interview most people who are not victims of sexual abuse and who are homosexual, they will tell you they felt this at a very early age when they began to feel the first stirrings of sexuality of any kind. So I think that is true for most of the ones I've heard and have spoken. So I think it is something that is, if not natural, something that occurs innately either through a hormone bath during gestation, through some sort of alteration of the normal sexual drive, during adolescence. Some mechanism we don't understand yet, but I believe it's innate. Okay, I do believe it's deviant in the sense it deviates from the norm, which, as you clearly posit, is heterosexuality and must be for species to survive. But I believe it's innate. Now, having said that, my problem with it is not that it's going to cause the end of mankind, because the overwhelming majority of human beings, as you put it, are going to always wish to procreate. The essential drive of life is to pass your genes on to succeeding generations, and it is impossible to do it without procreation. So my problem is this, not with individual homosexuals and the way they choose to live their lives with other people willing to live it with them. My problem is with the homosexual activist agenda, which is frequently leftist, Marxist, and almost totalitarian in its nature, in its imperatives, in its drives, and its dictates. And we look at it all around us when it comes to cancel culture, when it comes to the bullying and intimidation of many of these organized groups. They don't represent, I don't believe, the typical ordinary homosexual who just wants to live his life in peace and go about his business. They are people who wish, in conjunction with other leftists and Marxists, wish a transformation and a restructuring of society at the religious, cultural, and social level. And to wrap up, sir, I am more agnostic than I am religious. But I believe in religious freedom, because I believe that the Christian religion is the foundation of American liberty. It is the basis by which American liberties are derived, fundamentally. That is what was said by the framers. That's what was said by many others. And absent that, we lose the concept of American liberty, to include the rights of free speech that we're exercising on this platform right now.
So can I say where I agree with you? All right. And so I agree with you that the United States of America came by a lot of their philosophical positions looking through a Christian lens. But where I disagree, and where a lot of the writers who I've studied, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, and others, Eric Denham, the Four Horsemen, that you don't have to come to you don't need Christianity to come to these conclusions, because there are other cultures that came to the conclusions of liberties that aren't Christian. And so you can give Christianity the credit, if you so choose, for reaching these conclusions, but you don't have to, is the point. And I don't think that it benefits us to overlook all the evils of Christianity and then pat it on the back for helping us reach the points of civil liberties. Remember, some of the civil liberties you're talking about, all of them actually came at the sword. The Christians were murdering each other. They weren't just murdering non-believers. The Christians were murdering each other to help us to establish the freedom of speech. They were murdering each other, killing each other. We just talked about how the daggone Mormons got to Utah. We can't overlook them murdering each other and say, the founding fathers thought Christianity was led us to these points. We can't overlook the evil. And I think that it's worse that the Christians were murdering Christians in order to get to the point that we are, in order to finally realize that they shouldn't be killing each other over minute differences in their philosophy. We shouldn't be killing each other over that. And that's far more important than the fact that we got to the point that we are, where we understand that, hey, there should be a freedom of speech, or there should be a freedom of religion. Because that's where that came from. The freedom of religion came from the fact that the Christians were murdering each other in the United States. After the founding fathers.
Well, I accept your critique of the flaws in Christianity and the sins that have been committed in its name throughout history. I mean, they're self-evident, and they're well recorded and often talked about. But I'd like to refer you also to the unique nature of the United States and its founding. Again, unprecedented in history, a nation founded on notions, principles, and ideas rather than through organic amalgamation of various tribes and regions or the actions of despotic kings or conquest. One founded on a principle espoused in the Declaration, however imperfectly realized, and manifested in the Constitution of the United States. And the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights of that document says this: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. Now, given the fact that you and I have both agreed that the roots of American liberty are Christian, this document and those framers decided to remove Christianity and religion of any type as a religious test for living your life freely in the United States, at least at the federal level. And when the Supreme Court incorporated the Bill of Rights to the states, then we had a almost perfect separation of church and state insofar as religious tests are concerned. That, sir, is unique and literally almost unprecedented in human history.
If I may, I think you're making my point, though. I think you're saying something a bit contradictory. You're saying
and then we have another caller.
Okay, but so thank you, caller. But I'll just say in final response to the caller, I agree with what he says. I just don't agree with the conclusion. He said that the founding fathers put in the First Amendment that we shouldn't have religion in our society, not in our society, forced upon us by the state. And that's the truth of Christianity. That's actually the opposite, in my view. It's not a proof of Christianity that the founding fathers thought that we shouldn't have Christianity forced upon everyone. It's a proof of how the Christianity is failing. Is why the founding fathers said we shouldn't have religion forced on all people. If religion was so great, the founding fathers wouldn't remove it from society, wouldn't make barriers to it in society. If it was so successful, it was such a great thing. So people say that the founding fathers were Christian and Christianity is the prism that they looked at things. Most of the founding fathers were Christian, and a lot of the prism of how they looked at creating our society was through a Christian prism. But being looked through a Christian prism doesn't make Christianity right or good or the motivation. And just as the First Amendment states, Christianity was a motivation to block religion being forced upon us. The reason they put that in there because they didn't want, in England where the founding fathers came from, everyone had to be the religion of the king. And they didn't want a king, and they didn't want to have a theology from the leaders. That's not because Christianity was good. I think that's obvious, and I don't like that people suggest that it was because of how good Christianity was that we have freedom of religion. That makes no sense to me. If Christianity was great, we'd have it, because we don't have freedom of not having medical research, because clearly medical research saves lives, and we all are always fighting for that. So that's just my view. I take the opposite conclusion.
I think you keep viewing this through the lens of right, wrong, and whether or not of course they believe their religion was the essential right one. No Christian who actually believes in the word of Jesus Christ is going to believe anything else. But what they wanted to leave to each individual, at least initially before the Supreme Court incorporated the Bill of Rights to all of the states. Remember, some states had state religions within the states, and that was completely constitutional. There was nothing unconstitutional about each individual state prior to incorporation to states having religion, and many of them did. They had state religions. They said this is the official state religion of Massachusetts, or Episcopalianism is the official state religion of Rhode Island. But here's where I really disagree with
Sarge. Hold on. I got another call, Sarge. I have to take this next call.
All right, go ahead, take it. You go ahead, take it.
You can call back. Let me take it. All right. All right, caller. Open line. Who's this?
Okay, it's Miss Lady, and I just wanted to
Good evening, Miss Lady.
Hello. I'm not sure who you are. I'm sorry.
Dr. Blaque.
But, okay. Are you a doctor of science?
No. It's a stage name. No. I'm not. It's a stage name. I actually, my degree's in a science, but I don't have a PhD. It's just a stage name. I've had it since I was in middle school, actually.
So you have a bachelor's in science, like biology or something?
Yes, I have a bachelor's of science. Yes.
Okay. Well, there is a black professor of biology at UC Berkeley. I don't know if he's still there. Named Tyrone Hayes, Hayes, and he studied the effect of a widely used pesticide called atrazine.
That's the one. That's the one. That's the one. Thank you, Ms. Lade. Go on.
And along with other scientists and I guess PhD students, and he says that it is the most commonly applied pesticide in the world. It's contaminated the ground and drinking water, and it's a very potent endocrine disruptor that is active at low ecologically relevant concentrations. And what he found was that he studied the effect of atrazine on frogs, amphibians, and he found that because that atrazine was causing male demasculinization and feminization in these amphibians where atrazine was used. So the male frogs, a lot of the frogs became hermaphrodites. A lot of the male frogs became attracted to other male frogs. They weren't attracted to female frogs. And I think I read that even the female frogs were becoming sexually attracted to other female frogs and not to male frogs. And I think he expanded the study. It's been showing in terms of like beyond frogs, but other amphibians and maybe even some mammals, that it's a very potent hormone disruptor causing these problems. So you just kind of wonder if a lot of the current homosexuality and all of that's going on, if these kind of very potent chemicals has caused environmental effects in terms of sexuality. And so I just wanted to share that. You may want to look more into it, but his name is Tyrone Hayes, UC Berkeley professor.
I have a question. Are you in the chat room on YouTube right now? Is there any way you could drop a small link? I've been trying to find it. It slipped my mind up to ask the guy that revealed this information. I'm not sure if it's still
I'm not
circulating on YouTube.
Phone.
Okay. Well,
you could just do a Google search. Just do a Google search. Tyrone Hayes, Hayes. Atrazine study.
Right now. If anybody in the chat room or in the Facebook group, please, if you could do a quick name in Google, I would like that if possible, because I'm multitasking. It's kind of hard to really do a quick search. But that's the man that was, I guess, expunged from academia, and for a lot of people.
I don't think he was expunged. I know that there was the manufacturer of this. The manufacturer wanted the study done. I guess they thought it would show something completely different. And then when he was showing the results of his study, they wanted him to stop. And he didn't. And I think they wanted him to be fired from UC Berkeley. I don't think that happened. I think he got threats. If I'm not mistaken, I can't remember.
He said he received certain threats. He did receive threats. I'm not sure if the man. Like you said, he's still around. So, like I said, if anybody could.
I don't know if he's still around, but the thing is, a lot of the schools sometimes they don't bow to those kind of threats. You know, the same thing happened to, what's the woman that testified against Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas during his hearing, Anita Hill. She after that was over, you know, her career in terms of governmental service was interrupted. Was you know, there was a wall put up. But she was allowed to go back because they really liked her at the law school she went to, and she was teaching law there. And they got a call, like the head of the department where she was teaching, to fire her, and he refused. They had so much respect for her. And so then, allegedly, it went, because this came out in a documentary about her. It was a great documentary about Anita Hill, this Japanese woman did. And then, so then they called the dean of the law school, and they wanted him to fire her. The dean refused. Then they went up to the governor of the state and tried to get the governor to get her fired, but that never happened. She did, you know, so she was able to have a career, you know, teaching. And I guess she's retired now, but they will.
I have a question for you, Miss Lady. I have a question for you. Do you think that you're talking about the pesticide, do you think that it has a large effect or a minor effect on humans, greater humans at large? So you assume it's about 300 million, maybe 40, 60 years ago, there were only about 250 million Americans. And so do you think a large amount of the Americans might have been affected by that and towards homosexuality, or you think it was a small amount? And my second follow-up to that is, do you think there's a lot? Okay, that's okay. You have no idea. That's fair. I'm just asking if you had a thought about that. But my second question to you and Chaos was, do you think that, and I think Chaos has answered already, but do you agree with Chaos that the majority of Americans are not reflected by the increase in homosexuality and the homosexual lifestyle that we have in the media? Do you think there are a lot of Americans who are also homosexual, like in the media, or do you think that that's just a media thing, but there's still a small minority of Americans are homosexual?
Well, now that you ask
that was a very
run-on
sentence. That was a run-on sentence, so I'm not sure what you're asking because it was such a run-on.
Do you think that the media reflects a large amount, the media that promotes homosexuality, do you think that is a reflection of a large amount of Americans or a very small amount of Americans?
The media that reflects. So are you asking what percent of Americans do I think are homosexual? I'm not really sure, to be honest, but I think the last I read, it might be like, what is it? I think it's less than 15%. I'm not really sure. Because I really don't, you know, I haven't really researched any of that. But I just noticed it just seems like there's more, it is being promoted more over the past few years with the, especially this little Nas X pretending like he's pregnant with a baby. I mean, that's ridiculous.
I agree with you, though. No. I agree with you. I think we all agree that there's more homosexuality in society, in the media. But the reason I ask is because a lot of people are bothered. A lot of people are uncomfortable with the increase in the media portrayal of homosexuality. But I wonder if people are thinking that the media's portrayal is a reflection of the greater country at large, because I don't think that there are more homosexuals in America. I don't think that there are even 15% of United States of American citizens or people in the United States of America are homosexual. But I also, and because I don't think that's the case, I think that people may feel more comfortable if they could accept that. I think people may feel more comfortable if they knew that the media promoting what media promotes doesn't reflect the people, and that could be okay. For example, the media portrays all the negative stories. The news is mostly negative stories, right? The news leads with negative stories, and it's always a five-alarm fire every day in the news. But I think people who regularly watch the news know how to calibrate that, know how to adjust to that and say, well, I know the news portrays it like this, but my neighbor isn't carrying 450 guns and about to go to the post office, even though that was the story leading in the news today. So if we can adjust to the news or to the media for other subjects, I think we could also adjust for the subject of homosexuality. We can accept that that's a big thing in the media. That's a topic that they like to talk about and share and promote, but that doesn't mean that the society is really suffering by a large increase of homosexuals. Does that make sense?
Well, I can see where you're coming from. I'm not sure I agree. I would have to do some more thinking and some research about that, because I think that, like they say, oh, rap, remember rap, with all that violent rap that was really promoted back, and they were like, well, it's just reflecting art and what's really happening. It's not driving the violence. It's just showing what really is going on. But I absolutely disagree with that. I believe it actually did drive a lot of violence and a lot of negative behaviors with youth, and the outcome was very detrimental. And so when Dolores Tucker tried to stop all of that being promoted within media, she was shut down by a lot of black people. They attacked her.
Well, as an 80s baby, I can tell you who's done the research on hip-hop and violence in society, that hip-hop only is exactly what you said. It's just a reflection of what's going on. Rap doesn't make police kill black people. There's no songs about being a white police officer and killing black people. I know. I'm using that as an example. But I'm using that as an example to show you that even though there are comments in the music that may be actual, there's many, many more comments in the music that aren't actual. For example, you might say, okay, it promotes violence, but do you also say it promotes wealth? Do you think all the rappers who are rapping about being rich?
No. I think if they're promoting wealth by doing criminal acts and killing each other, then no, that's not a good thing.
So you're not right. So I didn't say it was a good thing. I asked if you think that they're promoting wealth, and so they talk about being rich all the time. And research has shown. Hold on one second, ma'am. Hold on one second. Let me make my yes. I understand that's what you think. What I'm saying to you, I understand. I understand that's what you think, but there's a difference between what you think and what the facts are. And if you look into the facts, there's tons of great things that's come from hip-hop. You don't have to like it to see the positive. Like, for example, I can tell you a lot of great things about religion, even though I don't like religion.
I said violent rap.
I know that's part of it. That's part of it.
With particular people, because they are so focused on driving home their point, they're not listening. They're not having a conversation. They're over talking. So I'm going to bid you good night.
I think that Chaos, as our guest just hung up, I think that people have this feeling that if a person is able to focus on their point, and that they are not knowledgeable about their point, or let's just say, for example, and this is relevant to our original point, a lot of people are religious because it makes them feel away. Just like that, Miss Lady doesn't like rap because it makes her feel away. It doesn't make her feel comfortable. It doesn't give her warm and fuzzies. So she is prone to the negativity of it because it doesn't make her feel good. Well, there's a difference between how you feel and the facts, and your feelings should be based on the facts. That's another reason why I can't be religious, because it doesn't matter how it makes you feel. It doesn't matter if you feel there's a heaven. It doesn't matter if it makes you feel good to think there's a heaven. When you're in the hospital and you need help, the feeling of there being a heaven isn't going to help you get well. Praying that there's a heaven isn't going to help you get well. The same point with that lady, Miss Lady. She doesn't like hip-hop, so it must be bad. That's not true. There's negative things about hip-hop, but there's way more positive things about hip-hop.
You might repeat the sentence. I think you're breaking up on my end. I'm not sure. But
okay. I was saying that just like in religion, people only focus on how something makes them feel. So people may feel good when they think about there being a heaven, or they might feel good about their thinking about there being salvation, but that feeling is irrelevant to the fact. The fact is there is no heaven, and there's no reason to think there's a heaven, and there is no salvation. Just like she doesn't like the way rap makes her feel, so she says, well, rap is bad because she doesn't like the way it makes her feel. She didn't say that, but that's basically what her comments prove, that she doesn't like rap because it doesn't make her feel good. Well, let's get past how you feel. Let's get to the facts. Let's get to the fact about how many people have been made millionaires because they did hip-hop. How many people left the crime of selling drugs and went to the music industry because of hip-hop? And it didn't exist prior to hip-hop. So you're going to look at the negative instead of looking at the picture in its totality. I'm an objective person. I can tell anyone positive things about Christianity, while I could also say Christianity overall, religion overall is bad. I can still tell you the pros and cons. And a person who is unable to be objective will do as she did, leave the conversation because she says, oh, the other person is being so stern. A person can be stern when they're properly educated. A person can be stern when they have the big picture, when they've researched, when they're not going on their feelings. A person who's only going on their feelings doesn't have a lot to offer to the conversation, and so then they make it into an argument, or they say, oh, I got to leave because you're being too firm. I don't think there's such a thing. I think if you focus on the facts, you should stay focused on the facts, and your conclusions should come from the facts, not from how you feel.
I'd like to thank Ms. Lady for calling in. And I appreciate Ms. Lady for calling and giving me the actual scientist, Tyrone Hayes. And it's something I might have to Google to find more about him, because I read articles of his findings on the pesticide. And yes, I'd agree with the man, because there are certain things that they don't want put out to the public, but that's not the topic for the show. But I just only brought that to attention just for make a point about, early on that divulge of the topic at hand. But like I said, it's good for you to bring us back on track on Paco. Let me read his last two comments. In the chat room, it says here, I'm glad I walked away from this God stuff. My family members are drunk with it and can't even figure out why they can't get anywhere. First comment by Christopher Webb. The second comment from him. In other words, they are always wanting or somebody or something to save them, which is the crux of many of their problems. Laziness. They're lazy, which I had to agree. That's the second comment by Christopher Webb. Thank you very much, sir. Now, we're going to wrap this up. The solutions. What solution do you want to lay out right now, Dr. Blaque, for the people that's listening? The floor is yours.
All right, brother. Well, this is my solution. I don't accept any religious philosophy. Every religion is philosophy. A philosophy is a set of ideas. I don't accept any of them because those ideas need to be supported by actual, practical, factual evidence. Like I said earlier, I'm an empiricist. So every idea, every philosophy, every concept that I support, I need empirical evidence to push me in that direction. That's how I make my determination. Like I said earlier, I have a degree. I have a Bachelor of Science degree. So my work is based on technical results. 1 + 1 = 2. If I turn this knob, it's going to give me this result. And I know how to calibrate it to get it to that result based on factual, actual, practical evidence, empiricism. So I don't accept religious philosophies, but I do accept some philosophies. So my first solution to getting away from religion is to let people know that there's a better philosophy than any religious philosophy. And the philosophy that I adhere to, the philosophy that I live by, is called humanism. Many people have heard of it, and humanism is in many religions. But for me, I take secular humanism. That means my humanism has no religious undertones, no religious foundation. I just think my philosophy is that I want to be my best, and the only way I could be my best is with other humans' help. The best I could possibly be is with the help of my fellow humans. Anything that I really want to achieve, to do well, to do better, will be with the help of my fellow humans. There is no higher power, but there is a power, and the power is within my fellow humans. That is the basis of humanism, the understanding that the greatest thing in the universe that we've discovered is each other, human beings. And everything we've ever accomplished is done by humans. every language that is written, spoken, exercised in any way is a human language. We don't know any other languages. We don't know a language of the gods. We don't know a language of any other beings. We only know human languages. You know what I'm saying? Just for example. And so we all can have a philosophy of helping our fellow humans in place to replace these religious philosophies that tell us to look to our fairy tales. And I say fairy tales because every god is really just yourself. Another solution, stop being so selfish. To be religious is to say that you have access to something that no one else has access to, a God. And the reason you have access to that God is because that God is in your mind. It's made up. It's in your head. Your God is in your head. That's why you're the only one who hears him. That's why he always tells you to do things that make you feel good. That's why you feel good after hearing him, because he's in your head. That's why there's no consistency to it, because the way we get consistency is from verifying. And the way we would verify our God is if more than one person hears. But no, we never have more than one person hear any God. We always hear him for ourselves. And then you say, well, you can't tell me what to do because God told me. What you're saying is you can't tell me what to do because I'm so selfish, I'm only going to listen to myself. And that's not the best way to operate on this planet. The best way to operate on this planet is when we respect each other. And real respect for each other is not this nonsense that we've been doing in society, saying, don't criticize the Christians, don't criticize the Muslims. Don't. Religions are philosophies. Philosophies are sets of ideas. Ideas are not necessarily right. Nothing is holy. There's nothing holy in the universe. Everything should be critiqued and scrutinized. There's this level of skepticism for everything, especially every idea. And we need to take away the special pleading, the special place that we give religious ideas as if they can't be wrong. Matter of fact, as if they haven't proven to be wrong. They've more than proven to be wrong. They've proven to be detrimental. Almost every horrific, beyond terrible thing that's been done in human history has a religious base to it. Religion has proven to fail us as a way of thinking, as a way of operating, and we need to let it go to be better for ourselves and our children and our grandchildren. The very Romans who gave us Christianity today have moved away from it. Sure, the Vatican's still there, but the average European who used to be 90% religious in the 1800s and 70% religious in the 1900s and 60% religious in the recent century is now down to less than 50% amongst all Europeans. We atheists love to research these types of things. Christianity is diminishing all throughout Europe, where it was created. And they're as strong and as powerful as a continent, as a set of people, as they ever were. And thankfully, even here in the United States, Christianity is diminishing because the game of every other year, a new person coming up with a new version of Christianity has finally begun to prove 3,000 denominations. Clearly, we don't know what the heck we're talking about. And thankfully, my generation, the millennials, are beginning to realize that we could live a healthy, respectful life without pretending to know things that we don't know and pretending to hold on to a power that no one can prove. And so I am an atheist only by definition, but we're all atheists. But I am what I would call an open atheist, where I don't believe any religion. And we're all atheists. I just go one step further, one God further than the rest of you, where I don't accept any gods, and you guys don't accept almost any gods except for the one you like. I don't accept any of them. And I have just as productive and healthy a life as you do. I love as much as you do. I cry and I hurt as much as you do. And I look forward to my dreams and successes as much as you do. So there's no need to be religious. And many, many, many millions of people are beginning to come to the realization. I look forward to all of us coming to that realization so that we can stop doing things like having pro-lifers murder pro-choice people at abortion clinics. Think about that. A pro-life person is a Christian who believes that you can't have an abortion, so they'll kill the doctor at a hospital, at an abortion clinic, to stop him from doing it. So a pro-lifer takes a life, telling themselves that they're saving a life. This kind of idiocy shouldn't exist in society. We humans have come far enough to be better than that. And all the endless reasons that Christians murder others, we need to stop giving Christianity and all these religions a special place. Just like Islam. Don't talk about the Muslims because they'll blow you up. Think about that. Don't talk about the Muslims because they'll kill you. Well, what is God doing while a Muslim murders another person, even after the Quran says that if you kill one person, it's like killing all of humanity? These ideas are wrong. These ideas do not make us better. These philosophies have proven to fail humanity, and it's time we let them go. And so my first solution, adopt secular humanism. My second solution is stop being so selfish. Stop thinking you have some magic connection to some magical being that's in your head. And thirdly, let's stop giving religion a special place it doesn't deserve. It doesn't deserve any place. The parts of religion that are false, throw it away. The parts of religion that make us worse, throw it away. The parts that are good, you have in the philosophy of secular humanism. There is no need for any kind of religion. There is no praying or worshiping or any of that that's going to make you better or give you any benefit that you don't already have, that people who don't believe don't have. None of you and listening to this have a benefit in life that I don't have. And the idea that you're going to get a benefit in the afterlife, hell, I'll risk it. It's not a real argument that you're going to have a benefit in the afterlife that I don't have, because I don't accept that there is an afterlife. I think this is the only life we get, and we should live it to the best of our ability with each other, treating each other the best, because we'll never get another chance. You get one life, and that's it. And the idea that you're going to go to heaven gives you an excuse not to do your best in this life, because you'll get another chance, but you won't. This is the best that it's going to be, and you got to make the best of your chance here with each other for the next generation and so on. And if for nothing else, do it for yourself. I always say do good things for selfish or non-selfish reasons. If you can't do it for a non-selfish reason, if you can't be a better person for the other humans, be a better person for yourself. Don't let anyone tell you that their version of a God told you that you can enslave another human being or steal or kill other human beings for a God. That can't make any sense. If he's omniscient, all-powerful, he'll kill for himself. He can't possibly need your help.
Okay.
So those are my solutions. The sooner we get rid of the religion, the better for all of us.
Before I wrap this up, the lines just lit up again. I have to take these 3 callers.
Let's take them.
Hold on. Y'all going to have to refer to one question at best. So I'm going to open one line at a time. Caller, open line. Who's this?
Hey, what's going on, Gary? How you doing, man?
What's good?
All right. Good show. I caught the half end of it. But I mean, I know you limited one question, man. I want to put 2 in one, and just real quick, brother. So the first question, and I'm going to put it in 2 again. If you say that there's no God or there's no religion, right? Where can you explain where do we come from? Where do humans come from? Or the Earth, universe? How is this put together as far as how did we get here as human beings? And another thing, how do you explain people, or how do you explain to people that claim that they have miracles in their life? They have prayed and they haven't done no action. The only action they did was get on their knees and pray, and they prayed for certain things, and it came and it happened. All right, so that's 2 questions, and I sit back. Good show. I caught the half end of it.
Mr. Gary, thank you for your call. I appreciate your questions. So I'll answer them quickly so we can get to the next caller. One, the information that we have about where humans came from, one of my favorite cities in the world is Washington, D.C. I spent a lot of time there. And if you go to the Smithsonian, Washington, D.C., you'll see what we understand about human beings. We understand where we came from Homo erectus and to Homo, all the way to Homo sapiens. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting. I'm mixing up some of my terms. I don't want to say it incorrectly. But we have the migration of human and the evolution of human beings. Now, we understand evolution. What we don't understand is biogenesis. We don't understand what made the first life become life. We don't understand how life started. But we do understand, and evolution is an explanation of how life developed after the first life began. And so people are going to say, well, if we don't know where the first life began, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? Science isn't about pretending or making up a God or making up answers. Science is about saying what you know and admitting what you don't know. So I don't know where the first life came from, and nobody else does either. I know for a fact that the Bible got it wrong, that it wasn't a first man and woman. I know for a fact that because I went to Ethiopia, and they have a corpse of the remains of what maybe the first human, and she was a woman by herself. So there wasn't Adam and then Eve. There's more likely that the mutation that made the first humanoid was a mutation from one of our ape-like cousins and became a woman, and then that woman had a baby. And then the details of that, I'm not a biologist. I'm not going to go into. And people are going to we all accept evolution to an extent. Some people are going to accept those explanations from scientists, and some aren't. That's not my business. But I'm going to tell you what the research says. We don't know what created the first life or how the first life began to live. But from that, when it came to Earth, it evolved, and we all share a common ancestor. That's what evolution is about. Where the universe came from, the Big Bang. If you want to know exactly how we know the Big Bang created the universe, because we have something called the radio background noise, we have all the redshift. These are the evidence that you can look. We could see it. Scientists are looking at it now. The redshift and the radio background noise shows that all of our universe came from a specific point, and they call that point, that explosion, the Big Bang. And there's tons and tons and tons of cosmological and other evidence that support the Big Bang. So once again, if people talk about what they believe, that's their business. You can believe whatever you want, but the facts there exist, and if you want to know, you know. I recommend a book called The Universe from Nothing. One of my favorite scientists wrote that book, Dr. Lawrence Krauss, and it explains exactly how we got a universe, not only from the Big Bang, but how it came from literally nothing. There was nothing before the Big Bang. And majority of the universe still has absolutely nothing. No weight, no mass, no nothing. Your second question was, you said, where did we come from? And then you said, how do I explain miracles? And I'd like to say miracles. Miracles are easily explained because miracles happen at the rate of chance. All miracles happen at the rate of chance. So there's things in life that we can't explain. Matter of fact, there are many things in life that we can't explain. But a miracle is something that's good, right? An outcome that's good for an individual that they can't explain and that they don't know how it happened. We call it a miracle, especially if it's an extraordinary outcome, something I didn't expect. Matter of fact, people win the lottery all the time, and that qualifies in most cases as a miracle because you get tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars and you didn't anything but write down some numbers. That's dang near a miracle. But I guess people think, we won't count that. The point is miracles happen at the rate of chance. And this is how we know miracles don't come from any being. Because when a miracle happens, real quick, I'm going to answer real quick. When a miracle happens in your benefit, the universe is balanced, so something negative happens to somebody else. For example, I'll just be slightly facetious here. If your football team has a ginormous comeback and beats another football team, even though that football team was beating the crap out of them, now your football team makes this huge comeback. They make a new record. No one's ever come back from 52 points down. Your team did it. You came back. Your elation, the miracle, the positivity that happens to you is also the pain and suffering of the other team. What if you bet money on that and you knew you were going to lose all your money, and all of a sudden your team comes back and they win by a record margin and you win way more money than you ever thought? That's a miracle. But guess what? Someone just lost all that and more of what you gained. So what we leave out is for every miracle, it's also a detriment to somebody else. Maybe you were waiting for a heart. You were waiting for a heart. You need surgery for your child. You were waiting for a heart. Well, that heart comes to you, but guess what it doesn't come to? It doesn't come to the next person who needs it. So miracles happen at the rate of chance. There is no elevation of miracles. Miracles don't happen for everyone at all the time. There's no prayer, or there's no angle in which you could gain a miracle. Some things happen to our benefit that we can't explain, and some people call those miracles. Those of us who don't call them miracles acknowledge that they happened. We just don't call them miracles because there's no reason to think that there's a power that's making them happen. They happen at the rate of chance. And I'm happy for everyone who benefits from their miracle, and I'm sad for everyone who loses at the rate of based on a miracle, because someone loses and we don't talk about that. So think about the heart surgery, right? Yes, for every miracle, there's a negative consequence too. Think about that heart surgery. Your child is waiting for that heart transplant, and they get it. Your child lives a successful heart transplant. What about the person who died for that heart, that gave your child a heart? And what about the person who died who didn't get the heart? Because your child isn't the only one who needs a heart. That was a miracle for your family, but that was a horrible nightmare for another family because they didn't get that heart transplant. Does that make sense?
Right. So basically there's a negative to every miracle.
That's my point. And I'm saying that people leave that out conveniently. They say the miracle part, but they don't like to talk about the negative aspect of that miracle. Okay. And I'm saying that they all happen at a rate of chance. There is no elevated number of miracles. You can't do anything to get more miracles for your family than another person can. There's no way to pray or sacrifice or anything. There's nothing you could do. You either get a miracle or you don't. So is it really a miracle if it's just chance? I'm calling it chance. You're calling it a miracle, but why would you call it a miracle? It's just chance. We don't know how you got it, and you can't duplicate it. Is that fair?
Some people that claim that it's a prayer. A prayer was asked.
I know they claim that, brother, but I'm saying that's not the truth. Because the prayer won't work a second time.
Dr. Black?
Yes, sir.
See, I don't mind y'all guys go at it now, but because I'm already past the time ready, and two people lined up, and I want to go through this. I don't want to go for 3 hours to the stream. So let me just take the last two calls.
That was a great question.
Thank you.
I thank you for asking the question. But wait, somebody dropped. What's the who's that? Kenneth? Yeah, see, yeah. All right, I'm gonna open one more line. If Kenneth calls back, I'll take it. All right, caller, who's this? He might be my last call because I don't know if Kenneth or some dropped for some reason. Go ahead.
Yeah, Sarge, you're again, Chaos.
Oh, come on, Sarge. No. Oh, no.
I got a question. You said questions. I have a legitimate question. I will challenge
brother. Hold on. So, this is wrap up now. Unless this is a very simple question, and Parker, I'm not sure how long you can answer.
It's one direct question.
All right, please ask the question, and Parker.
All right.
If you can, if you can. Go ahead.
Okay, I noted that you said you're a secular humanist. I'd like to ask you this question. How do you reconcile the horrifically murderous record of 85 million human lives at the hands of the ultimate in secular humanists, Marxism, communism, and the first kissing cousin, fascism, with the inhibitions that ensue from a belief in the transcendent notions of morality as expressed in the ultimate judgment of an omniscient God?
All right, brother, that's a great question. So I'm going to recommend you to, because I don't have time to explain, I'm going to recommend you to this book by Christopher Hitchens called God is Not Real. And the reason why I recommend that book is because he explains this very point, that atheists or people who are secular humanists, because like I said, the word atheist is really unnecessary. We're all atheists. But secular humanists, we have the ability to appreciate the transcendent, the luminous. We look at stars and babies and awe in the same exact way you do. So you don't need to be religious to appreciate something transcendent. But to your point about the murder record, secular humanism, brother, you're talking about a person who committed crimes. You're not talking about secular humanism. You're talking about a person who accepted secular humanism, who killed other humans without a God. That doesn't change anything. What's your motivation for doing atrocities doesn't change anything, or it doesn't change a lot. The most important point is that you committed crimes and you stole those lives. But if we're going to say, to wrap this up real quickly, if we're going to judge people on their motivation, then there should be zero death by Christians, because it's the daggone the commandment says thou shalt not kill. The commandment says that. So you claim this philosophy and you can't even follow your own philosophy. There is no place in secular humanism that says thou shalt not kill. Matter of fact, secular humanism says that you should minimize your kills. There's only that you should rarely ever kill. But the Bible straight says thou shalt not kill. It doesn't give any room for when you should kill, yet people always kill. The Bible contradicts itself and says later on that there are times to kill. So the Bible doesn't even know when to kill. So we can't judge secular humanism before we judge the religion. The people who claim to be religious, the Christians, have a document that tells them not to kill, and they still do it anyway, so you can't move over to judging secular humanism. And the Christians have killed way more than 1 million people. Way more than 1 million people. All the Crusades combined have killed 500,000 people. Go ahead.
So not at that rate they have, and nobody exceeds that record for 70 years.
How many Africans were killed? How many? I'm not talking about in the years. That's fine. That's fine. You're doing semantics. You're doing semantics. It doesn't matter if you try to say, you killed the most people in a certain amount of time. Brother, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying that leader killed people in the shortest amount of time. That's irrelevant because Christianity's been around longer and it's killed 10 times more people. It doesn't matter if you kill people in a short amount of time. It matters that those people never come back. It matters that your philosophy, Christianity, says that you shouldn't kill anyone. So you got to explain before secular humanism makes an explanation. You make an explanation for why Christians are still killing other Christians. 90% of people in the U.S. James. No, that's not okay. It doesn't matter original sin. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not kill.
No, sir.
You're
also,
a
free will
failure.
and original
The religion's a failure.
It's explained in those concepts.
Bro, your religion's a failure. Don't make excuses for it. Just accept it.
And I'm making
just
excuses.
like
I'm not even a Christian.
But you're making excuses for it. You don't have to be a Christian to make excuses for it.
By other information.
I know the information. We both know the information. I'm saying you can't make excuses. If thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not kill. It's a failure. Accept it. It's a failure. The religion's a failure. God has never stopped. When has God stopped Christians from killing? The Christians kill Christians. Christians kill Jews. Christians kill. How many Africans have the Christians killed?
Sir, again, such a saying that thou shalt not kill simply means that thou shalt not survive. You literally cannot survive if you're not at some point willing to kill. Because of the nature of man, human nature.
If God is omniscient, he could stop it.
Created by whatever it is that created human beings.
Nothing created human beings. Human beings weren't created.
I know you don't accept as being God, but I think we can both agree on a secular basis that all human beings are imbued with a human nature. Are we or are we not? Do you agree or not?
I guess we could agree. I'm not sure what a human nature means, so I'm not sure.
I mean, whatever it is that's innate that causes our behaviors, that explains.
I don't think there's anything that causes our behaviors. Morality is, brother.
Their infinite variety behave the way that they do.
Human beings behave in every kind of way. There's no limit to how humans behave. So when you say
do you agree
infinite,
with me
right?
that is true?
All right, Sarge.
I agree with you that human behavior is infinite, but if it's infinite, then you can't say there's a human set of behaviors because there isn't a human set of behaviors. Infinite.
I think we can say there is such a thing.
All right, Sarge, that's enough. Parker, I'm going to take the final call. And I see now, Ken. Open your line now. And Kenneth, you are my final and last call. So what's on your mind, brother? What do you want to talk about?
Hey, how you doing, Gary? What's up, brother? I'm sorry. What is your name?
Dr. Blaque.
Can you guys? Dr. Blaque. Okay. I hope you guys can hear me okay. Yeah. I am a devout Christian. I actually hung up because I wanted to have a conversation, but I will ask just one question. I really wanted to have a conversation, even with the exchange you were having with Sarge, because I think you really. Anyway, I'll just ask the question. I heard you say a little earlier that we should not be using God, I guess, to kind of like let me just summarizing kind of like what you said. We shouldn't be using God as being, I guess, the moral compass to how we live our daily life. So then my question to that would be, well, if not a higher power, then who gets to dictate what's right and what's wrong? I don't know if you saw the interview with Jeffrey Dahmer, who also was an atheist, and he said that, he used that logic that he didn't see anything wrong with killing people for whatever reason, because he didn't believe in God, and there was nothing that really, he held him accountable for what he was doing. So I'm just wondering, to ask you the question, who gets to dictate what's right and what's wrong?
Great question. I appreciate your question. So let me say this. No one gets to dictate anything, including the fairy tale idea of God. So I love how you Christians like to throw Jeffrey Dahmer out there. How many people have committed murders, and many murders, before and after Jeffrey Dahmer? Why do we use Jeffrey Dahmer as an example, as if he's the only person that's killed people? So he doesn't believe that religion holds him accountable, and clearly religion doesn't. You know who holds him accountable? The people who put him in jail. You know who put him in jail? Other humans. So if other humans didn't stop Jeffrey Dahmer wouldn't have been stopped. You know who didn't stop Jeffrey Dahmer? You know who didn't put him in jail? Your God. The Christian God did nothing. Just like the same Christian God did nothing about all the Africans that got killed in transit coming over here. All the Africans got killed being moved throughout slavery. So you can judge the human, and I'm all for that. I actually support that. That's secular humanism. But what I don't like is the false equivalency that your God has some ability to do something, because when is he going to do it? Why didn't God stop Jeffrey Dahmer or slavery or anything? Why hasn't God stopped anything? Why hasn't God fixed daggone COVID? Why hasn't God stopped the guy who's about to kill somebody right this second? Someone's going to die from a car accident. Someone's going to die from domestic violence. Someone's going to die from a bad drug deal, and your God isn't going to do anything. So the conversation makes no sense if we try to do a false equivalency, as if the option could be God. You're saying the option that humans have failed, and of course humans have failed. We all accept humans have failed. Secular humanism, the human has failed. But what I'm trying to say is, when has God succeeded? Tell me a time, or tell me how we can access a success story for God. Show me how we can use God right now on this phone call. Someone's about to get hurt. Show me how we can use God to fix that problem. Because if you can't do that, you don't have a point. God isn't a solution to anything, for anything. Now, where do we get morality from? We get morality from each other. Thank goodness you and I have been born at a time where morality has come to a point where we don't get to enslave each other. Because you and I, being of African descent, will be slaves to people of European descent. Thank goodness we finally came to the realization, after 99% of human history, realized, dang, enslaving our fellow humans is not a good idea. What the hell was God doing the whole time we were enslaving each other? Where was the morality then? Show me the text in the Bible that says, thou shalt not have slaves. You won't find it. So every Christian today who is not wait, hold on, real quick, I'm ending. Every Christian today who doesn't hold a slave, who says I would never have slaves, is not getting that idea from the Bible. They're getting that morality from somewhere else. You know where they're getting it from? Secular humanism. Because it's a humanistic view to not enslave your fellow human, not based on a religion. Is that not true, sir?
To a certain extent, like I said, I don't think you're going as far as you should go with your assessment. So, I mean, like, I don't want to, I did call in to have a conversation with you, but I know, I want to respect Chaos's time. So, we
can go on to IG at some point if you got a pen. And matter of fact, just put in Dr. Blaque, it's DRBLAQUE. You can find me on IG, and I'd love to do an IG live with you, because I have my whole family's Christian. I have, obviously, because I worked in the Middle East, I have lots of Muslim friends. I have friends who are other religions. So I like to have the conversation about religion, especially with somebody who can have it respectfully. A lot of people want to throw their feelings out there instead of having a conversation. You sound like you might at least be familiar with theology. Theology is the whole system of how to make the Christian religion, or how to make religion, period. So if you're familiar with theology, we can have a long, extensive conversation about it, or not even a long conversation. We can just have a conversation about it. Dr. Blaque,
I look forward to that. What is Dr. Blaque?
DRBLAQUE. It's not BLACK. It's DRBLAQUE. Okay. Or Paco Abugo. You're going to see that. Dr. Blaque is my name. So you can add me, and then we can set up an IG Live and have a conversation. And hopefully some other people come on, and we can talk about it. Because I've gone very far. Like I said, my father's a preacher. He's the one that taught me about thinking in these theological terms and having debates and asking the right questions. So you and I can see where we get from there.
Some of the staunchest atheists were formerly believers of God. So
because the best way
I understand, but like I said, I don't want to. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The best way to become an atheist is to read the Bible. And when I throw all those contradictions at you, you're going to have to explain why the Bible contradicts itself. Why first on one hand says, thou shalt not kill, then on the other hand says, kill on the Canaanites. That's a contradiction. That makes no sense. In the same Old Testament, in the same book, in the same Exodus, thou shalt not kill, but go ahead and kill the Canaanites. That's not something that we have in secular humanism. So I don't know why you're holding on to
all right, Kenneth.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm
waiting for the after hours, so yeah.
Oh, good, cool. All right, thank you, Kenneth. Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem,
bro. A great question, Mr. Kenneth. Thank you.
No problem, brother.
The future of religion, because we already did the solutions. What do you see forsaking the future of religion in the next 25 years from your perspective? How you see things going?
For those of us who research religion and look at the trends, I love to make this point. At the beginning of time, you were a deist. You just thought that there might be a higher power, but he probably didn't help. Then you went to where you believed that gods were in all of the soil and the plants and the mountains and the trees. There's always been a sun god forever. And those are many, many gods. The Native Americans really, their philosophy, their theology still holds on to all the gods of the mountains and the tree and the sun and the rain and the everything. Then you went to polytheism where you had gods with personalities. Okay? So you went from everything was a religion, everything was a god and pantheism, and then you went to polytheism where gods had personalities, and you had Zeus and you had Herod and you had all these other gods. Then you kept working your way down, and the Jews were the first one to make this idea very popular of monotheism. There was one God, even though they had three. The Christians had three, but the Jews and the Muslims really had one God. Now we're down. The most popular religions in the world, Christianity and Islam, have one God. But the greatest movement, not the most popular, but the greatest movement, the largest growing group of people in a religious philosophy are atheists. So we went from everything was a god to many things were gods with personalities down to one God, and now most people are moving to where I am, zero gods. Because thanks to technology, we understand that we care about results. We care about empirical evidence. It used to be when we were more ignorant, we didn't read. 99% of the population didn't read back in the first century. Hell, even in the early 1900s, only about 20% of the population read. But now that everyone's reading, required to go to school and learning how to learn, this is important, learning how to learn, and you put religion to the test, you scrutinize it, you realize that it fails every time. The simple fact that I said it over and over and over again, if you have a problem right now and you wanted God to solve it, you don't know if it could be done. You can't prove it. If I gave you 30 seconds on a phone call to give you the answer to a math question by doing the math that you learned in school or using your religion would fail every time. Because your God doesn't work, and people are accepting that. It used to be, well, that's not a fair question of God, but now people really begin to realize empiricism matters. It is a fair question. If I have something that works, I'm going to go with the thing that works, and God doesn't work. Believing God doesn't work. Thinking about God doesn't work. And so where I see it going is atheism is going to keep, not atheism. I don't think atheism is a real word. Non-belief is going to keep growing. People are going to keep accepting that gods aren't real. And we already mostly agree with that. Polytheism is rare. Other than Hindus, most people don't believe in a whole set of different gods. We're not out here praying to Zeus. But we used to. We can go to Athens right now and see the temples to Zeus and Athena. They're still there, right? Right, Chaos? They're still there. So I see us going down to zero because it's appropriate. It's been headed that way for a long time. It went from the mountains and the trees and everything was a god to a couple of personality gods, and now we're getting down to one, and soon most people won't be religious. My children aren't religious. Even though my whole family was raised religious, my children aren't religious. And some of their cousins are equally not as religious, and a lot of their friends aren't religious. And so, we millennials are less religious than the baby boomers were, and our Gen X children are less religious than we are. Like I said earlier, the whole European continent used to be 99% religious. You used to force religion, and you have to be Christian by the sword. You have to be a Christian. And a lot of the Muslim countries are super religious. If you go to Dubai right now, you want to know the most popular date in Dubai, the most popular day, the thing that has the most activity in Dubai. Do you know what that is? Christmas. Christmas is the most popular date. The week of Christmas to New Year is the most popular time in Dubai. Dubai is a Muslim country. 7 emirates ran by 7 Muslim princes. And their most popular day is Christmas. And they don't believe Jesus Christ was a God like the Christians do. Because even the Muslims are moving to the rationality that what matters is practicality. What matters is what you can prove. What matters is what can be of benefit to you. It is not what you believe solely. What you believe only isn't enough. And so where I see things going is we're becoming less and less and less religious, as we should. I won't be alive at a time where there's less religious people than there are non-religious people. I don't think it's coming that fast. I don't think it's going to be in the next 40 years or 60 years. But 60 years from now, being a non-believer will be so common that they'll laugh at us for the time where they used to kill each other over being religious. I just finished a book called The Epic of Gilgamesh. It's the origin story of Noah's Ark. So the Jews stole the Noah's Ark story from the Epic of Gilgamesh. It was in the same place in Iraq. The Sumerians were the predecessors to the Babylonians who are in the Bible. And the more you learn about religions, this is what freed me, the more you learn about all different kinds of religions. I've studied Sikh, I've studied Hinduism, obviously I used to love Greek mythology as a child. I don't call it mythology anymore, because if we're not going to call all religions mythology, we shouldn't call any religions mythology. So I don't call it Greek mythology. I just call it Greek pagan religion, because the Greek pagan religion is as much of a mythology as the Bible's mythology. So I've studied the Greek pagan religion. I've studied the Roman pagan religion. All of these religions I started trying to study some of the Native American religions, but there's so many. And every time I studied them, I realized that religions are just escapes for people who don't want to accept reality. And reality is very difficult for most people. Before modern medicine, reality was horrible. In the first century, I say the first century, for those of you who don't know, that was the time that Jesus supposedly lived. He never lived. Jesus didn't exist. But in the first century, most people died around 33 years old due to some kind of tooth infection. They hadn't discovered toothbrushes yet, and people would die because they had gum disease, cavities, tooth decay. That's what would kill you. And for anybody who's had a cavity, you know how painful that is. And people would die from that. God would just let them die, apparently. So we have come a long way. And now that we have modern medicine, people don't have to pray and worship. And notice, now that we have modern medicine, there are a lot less things that don't exist anymore either. Loch Ness Monster is a lot harder to find someone who thinks that that's sailing around in Loch Ness. Or Bigfoot is a lot harder to find someone who says they're looking for that. And the more we learn how to read, the more educated we are, the better kind of people we are. And so where is religion going? Religion is going out the door where it should go. The more educated we are, the more practical we are, the better we are, the less religious we are. And thank goodness, can't come soon enough.
Well, I
would never want to hear another person getting killed by a religious Christian fanatic who is a pro-lifer and is killing a doctor, taking his life because he's performing a legal medical procedure that Christian doesn't agree with. I mean, these type of horrible things, I can't imagine why people believe in this damn God who never seems to do anything right by his own people. If we just look at the people who get hurt the most, they're Christians. What percentage of people in jail are Christians? 90%. 90% of people in jails right now are Christians. Well, what the hell is God doing for them? What is prayer doing for them? It sure isn't stopping them, because they sure turn around and kill their fellow Christians. That's why they're in jail. They got arrested hurting a Christian. In most cases, right?
Okay. Wait, before I say something, what I see religion going forward is like what has been written, that once religion gets down to 50 to, let's say, close to 30%, which is probably another decade or possibly two, depending how fast things accelerate, that I could see the last and final stage that will take this if they're going to probably unify to that one God concept that they've always been written in books. And we all know who the ones wrote the books that they want how the world and people's minds to shape in the next few decades. And I see that coming down the pipe. Now, how people say, well, I think like that because they wrote books and they already talked about it for some time now. And the reason why I say this because once you lose the control of religion, now people don't have nothing to, you can't hold people and bind people no more. And the purpose of religion in the Catholic Church is for control. Nothing more and nothing less. So I want people to think good on that one. All right?
That's very true. That's very true. But I would argue, it's not argue, but I would suggest to you that there's still other forms of ignorant thinking that's controlling, that's not religious, specifically religious. If you look at politics, if you look at how people behave in politics, why they say don't talk about two things at work, religion and politics, because they're similar. In politics, just like religion, you don't have to have facts. You just have to have a feeling. You're a Republican, and things are going to be, I'm voting with the Republicans because I'm a Republican. Not whether they're doing the right thing, not whether they're helping me. So people are going to leave religion and go right to politics, and we'll still have the same problem. We're still going to have to figure out how to help people to behave appropriately based on facts and not just emotions.
Well, Dr. Black, that would be for a downline further conversation. But we'll wrap it up here. Tell people where we can find you.
Your boy Dr. Black on Instagram. Paco Abrigo, PACOABRIGO on Facebook. Dr. Black, DRBLAQUE on Instagram, and my pro-feminist page on YouTube is also Dr. Black. Also Dr. Black on Twitter. You hit me up at Dr. Black. I'm there. Ask me religious questions, financial questions, or anything. You know, we do finance, we do religion, and hashtag atheist prophet. I like to post thinking questions that you won't hear at your church, that you won't hear at your synagogue or your mosque or anywhere else. The questions that really expose how the religion has been lying to you. And, of course, the people who don't want to get away from the lies will hide from it. But for people who believe that there was a Jesus, I gotta promote this great book called Nailed. This is a religious podcast, so I gotta promote this book called Nailed by David Fitzgerald. It's called 10 Christian Myths That Show Jesus Never Existed. So pick that up and really learn. If you read Nailed, you can stop being a Christian today, because it's all the things that they don't tell you at church that will help to free you instead of letting you go to church and use your real money. One of the things that upset me the most, use your real money to pay tithe and offering only to get a benefit in heaven. If you're going to get a benefit in heaven, then you shouldn't have to use real money. You should pay it when you get to heaven, right? Doesn't that make sense? Mm-hmm. If the benefit's in heaven, then you should pay for it in heaven. It will be like a doctor making you pay for a surgery that you're only going to get in heaven. That makes no sense. Well, that's what the pastor's doing to you now. Pay your tithe and offering on earth with real money, but pray and hope for results in heaven. That makes no sense. Church should be free because they're not giving you anything beneficial on earth. So, Nailed by David Fitzgerald. Remember, your boy Dr. Black, a.k.a. the Atheist Prophet, told you. Mm-hmm. Thank you for having me on the show today, brother. Right, Chaos, I appreciate you.
Thank you. And now that we cover many aspects, 3 different streams, which eventually I might have to put them on the description of this stream. for those that want to go back to the archives. And like always, Dr. Blaque, there may be more subjects that you want to come to mind and want to dialogue with me that we could do future shows. I'm here. I'm waiting, like always. For everybody else, thank y'all for listening to tonight's stream. Catch me on the next stream, like always. And also, I will put the links to follow Dr. Blaque personally. So, Parker, you might have to inbox me all the new links that you created, so I could.
I will.
Good. Well, you know, like always, see you on the next podcast, people. Until next time, take care and good night.
I'd like to give special thanks to Paco Abrigo, a.k.a. Dr. Blaque, as my guest for this stream. And like always, the descriptions to follow Dr. Blaque will be in the description of this stream. And like always, comment, subscribe, and like this video. You can now follow me on Twitter at Chaos27. And now you can follow me on Facebook, Eric Rain on Facebook. Thank you for listening. Until next time, let the chaos reign.